Hey, happy Friday, folks. It is Friday, July 11th, 2025. Nice to have you here up on Lake Wissota as we get the weekend started. Thank you for tagging along on this Friday. Coming up in this first hour of the program across the Civic Media Radio Network, how is this still a thing? We'll be talking about birthright citizenship, President Trump trying to defy the Constitution, a federal judge is doing what he can to try to make sure the president, abides by the Constitution. So we'll have that coming up. Our weekend review panel, surely we'll talk about that in our 7 o'clock hour as well. We'll also tell you how childcare providers and parents will be gathering at the state capitol this morning to rally and outline the next steps needed to address the crisis of affordable childcare. We'll talk to Mike Clemens in our 8 o'clock hour about a Brewers season that has gone from mediocre to exciting in just a few short weeks. And Dr. Kristen Lyerly is in Washington, D.C., and we'll talk about what doctors out there are doing this weekend, gathering in the nation's capital to talk about what's needed for the nation's healthcare system. Plus, it's Free Ticket Friday, so you'll be texting in a keyword and be in the running for 4 Brewers tickets to a game this Sunday, Brewers against the Washington Nationals. All that and more coming up in just a few minutes here. I didn't set up my clock. 4 minutes from now across the Civic Media Radio Network, if I can see that tiny clock correctly. So I'm going to go get that fixed. I'm going to turn on that light over there, have some coffee, and see you in a bit.
across Wisconsin on Civic Media. You are listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Minnesota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Well, hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It is 6:06 on a Friday morning. It's July 11th, 2025. Another beautiful morning to have you here up north, live from Lake Minnesota, from wherever you're spending your mornings, listening across the Civic Media Radio Network, or listening or watching us on all the other different platforms out there. Thanks for starting the day and ending the work week right here. Let me start with this question for you. You ever feel like you take your citizenship for granted? I mean, for most of you, it just happened. You were born and you are a citizen of the United States of America. And by and large, it cannot ever be taken away from you. Can you imagine being stateless with no country that officially wants you, no country that officially recognizes you? That sounds awful. And now imagine it happens to you as a baby. And because Donald Trump says so. We're going to talk about the topic of birthright citizenship and whether a baby should have to be stateless because the man baby in the White House doesn't want to follow the Constitution. I don't even know how this is still a thing, but apparently it is. So we're going to be talking about that today. Also, childcare providers and parents will be gathering at the state capitol this morning to rally and to outline the next steps needed to address the crisis of affordable childcare. They say what was passed in last week's state budget is entirely inadequate to prevent continued closures, which will give parents fewer options and make the state's labor shortage worse. Of course, we'll have our week in review panel, and among the topics, I know that one that's sticking in their craw. Could we please get newspapers, could we get news sites to stop playing dumb with question headlines like, is Donald Trump violating the Constitution? You're a reporter. Answer the question in the headline. Trump is violating the Constitution, or whatever the case may be. But this whole notion of asking a question so that you have to read it, turning it into clickbait, is not information. So I'm sure they'll have to vent about that. We'll talk to Mike Clemens about the Milwaukee Brewers and a season that has gone from the potentially mediocre to the unexpectedly exciting in just a few short weeks. And Dr. Kristen Lyerly will report from the nation's capital as some OBGYNs gather in Washington, D.C. to talk about the nation's healthcare system, and she'll give us a sense of what they are discussing out there. Oh, hey, it's Free Ticket Friday as well. So you can get ready to text us that keyword using the Civic Media app. And you can also leave us a voice note on the app, or you can put something in the comment sections on Facebook or YouTube, or you can send us an email, radio@upnorthnewswi.com. From Brittany Merlot, heavy rain and flash flooding are a risk across the state today. The humidity has really ramped up, so today's statewide forecast is muggy with scattered showers and storms, especially south. Highs today in the upper 70s up north, mid-80s south, and the winds will be southeast to south around 10 miles an hour. For tonight, showers and storms are expected. Some could be strong. Lows tonight in the mid to upper 60s and a southeast wind around 5 miles an hour. That's your statewide forecast from Brittany Merlot, and we will get much more from her about what the weekend has planned for us weather-wise coming up right after the 7 o'clock news here on these mornings, powered by Up North News on the Civic Media Radio Network. Let's bring in now from Madison Studio A2, one Parker Olson, because two would be too many. He's got the Mallard shirt on. He is ready for the weekend. How are we doing?
Doing pretty good. I'm having conflicted thoughts about how yesterday the Mallards got rained out. So which means I have to work a doubleheader today.
Oh no. Okay.
So not thrilled about that, but
What time is the first game then today?
First pitch of the first game, I believe, is at 4.
Okay.
So you got
a lot of baseball ahead today.
Yeah. They do shorten it though to 7 innings, which is very nice.
Okay. Do they then as well, is it like, do they have to empty the stadium out first and then get today's ticket holders to come in?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Usually they don't do that. Usually I think you can go to both games,
Okay.
but I'm
All right.
not sure. I would have to look. That's not my
When-
job. I work
when
the
you-
camera.
when you are, but besides working at a game, have you ever like attended a baseball doubleheader? Like
not
Brewers or
Mallards.
otherwise, or Mallards,
I-
anything?
Whitewater I have because they only play doubleheaders basically in
Okay,
college. So.
I'm about to say something that people are not gonna like. Well, baseball purists are not gonna
Uh-oh.
like. I love baseball. And people are gonna go, well, maybe you don't so much. I went to one Brewers doubleheader, intentionally, like, 2 baseball games for 1 ticket. I gotta say, by the end of that 7+ hours, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to go home now. That was a bit much. Now, that was many, many years ago, when you had many more doubleheaders back then in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Now you really only have them as makeup games. And I kind of see why. And again, there was no pitch clock back then. Games were regularly 3.25, 3.5 hours. And then there's a long gap between the games. And yeah, so it's kind of yes, you can get too much of a good thing. We're going to leave you alone in the candy shop. And by the time it's all said and done, you're going to go, I don't want the goo-goo clusters anymore. I've got a tummy ache. And that was me with the double headers. So unless it's a makeup game, and then you got to do it. Speaking of eating too much, it was really fun to be at the Northern Wisconsin State Fair yesterday with Todd Alba, sampling some of the fair food, having my big old glass of lemonade. The second one, because I spilled the first one during Todd's show.
I saw the first one went down.
And Todd's sister, God bless her. I mean, she just grabs the mop bucket and everything. She knows that the show must go on. So while Todd and I are doing radio, she's right behind us like Carol Burnett, with the mop bucket, just taking care of my mess with the spilled lemonade. And so we went out to dinner after that and had a lovely time over here on the lake. It wasn't quite. The weather was just a little too dicey. Like, if you take out the boat, that's when you're going to get rained on. So of course we sat outside for dinner, and it was perfect. The weather, the sun came out, and I'm just like, I'm sorry guys, but I know full well how this works.
That seems
so
great. What was the best thing you had at the state fair?
Well, I have this tradition. I think I've mentioned it before. It's a foot-long hot dog, with onions. And it's something that started when I was a kid, and I don't know exactly how it started. I'm pretty sure it went like this. My grandma, Grandma Pingle, used to go to the fair with me. We both loved it, so we would just go, the two of us, and go early in the morning. And I don't know. I sense how it started was me going, Grandma, I'm hungry. Grandma, I'm hungry. Because that's what I was, like, nonstop eater. Like, Grandma, I'm hungry. And the only thing that was open at that point was, a hot dog stand. But it just became tradition after that when you walk into a fair, especially if it's in the morning, you get yourself a foot-long hot dog with some onions. And that's what I had yesterday, too. Tradition.
I thought there was going to be a joke in there about how you kept asking about getting food because you were so hungry, and she got so tired of you. She was like, all right, let's get you a foot-long hot dog.
Yes, if that shuts you up. It did shut me up. I mean, again, foot-long, it's like, well, he can't talk. He's eating. So there might have been some method to her madness. God bless her, So anyway, we had a really nice time despite the rain. Rained for a time there, but, then we got to go around the grounds, and we will be doing all of that again today. Todd Alba will have his show live from the Northern Wisconsin State Fair here in Chippewa Falls from 2 to 4. We're in one of the exhibit buildings, so come on in and see us. We're in one of the buildings. We're right inside the door. Can't miss us, and we'd love to have you stop by and say hello. I believe our music station, 105.7 CFW, has a ticket drawing, has a ticket giveaway that you can sign up for. Tickets to Foreigner. They're playing tomorrow. Florida is playing tonight. So come on out and see us at the fair if you get a chance. Have you noticed? Let's see. Tony asks if I will be providing the singing today. I did a.
You're not topping the barbershop.
No, that barbershop quartet that performed on Todd's show yesterday. I mean, they were
awesome.
They were very impressive. Yes, exactly. And Tony asked, are the Republicans going to pop over today? Because, again, it's a building full of exhibits. And one of the exhibits right behind Todd is the Republican Party
I
of
spotted
Chippewa and Eau
that.
Claire counties. Yeah, and just a little bit further down the way is the Democratic Party, and they're not getting nearly the publicity that they could. But everybody's walking all over the place, and we did say the offer is open if Derek Van Orden happens to be visiting the Republican booth there. I mean,
He doesn't go to his own district.
we'll exactly right. So I'm like, we can't even tap a keg to lure him, like bait or something. If I don't expect that we will see him, but we'll see. You never know during Todd's show. Anything is
Sure.
possible.
It's very true.
Have you noticed the shorter days already?
I have. I was thinking this morning as I was driving in, and I don't know if it's just because it's cloudy and muggy and whatever,
Yeah.
but I couldn't see the sun hardly at
Mhm.
all.
Yep.
I
So
couldn't-
I looked at the stats here, and 30 days ago, from right now, 30 days ago was our earliest sunrise, 5:18 in the morning. The sun now rises at 5:30. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. No, it's
I'm
5:30.
way in before that.
And the sunset last week was the latest sunset at 8:56 here in the Chippewa Valley, and it's now 8:51. So that math tells me we've already lost around 15 minutes of daylight. I mean, I may as well put up the Christmas tree. Summer's over. The sun should be
We're over
setting at
half of
4 p.m. in no time whatsoever.
Yeah.
That always gets me when people are like, oh, summer's half over. So no, we got all of July left. We got all of August. Sometimes we get, summer weather stretching into September. We will be fine.
That's true.
We'll live,
Yeah.
The Brewers were off yesterday. They play the Washington Nationals tonight to open up a 3-game homestand. And then that's it. It's time for the All-Star break next week. And then the Brewers will be back in action next Friday night in Los Angeles against the Dodgers. But while we're talking about the Brewers here and the Nationals, how about we try to make you a winner of some tickets? Yeah, it's Free Ticket Friday. Your chance to win a 4-pack of Brewers tickets. All you need to do is listen for our keyword and use that Civic Media app to text it to us before the end of the show at 9 a.m., and you'll be entered in this statewide contest for 4 tickets to Sunday afternoon's game versus the Washington Nationals, okay? So if you are in a position where you can go to Sunday afternoon's game at American Family Field, Brewers and Nationals, and you want 4 great seats, you want to get in the running for these tickets. Great tickets. There, we do a random drawing statewide from the entries, and this hour's keyword using the Civic Media app is BALL, B-A-L-L. And one winner will get a 4-pack of club-level seats. So again, download that Civic Media app in the Apple or Google stores. Find a station, use the text button, enter the keyword BALL to be entered. And don't forget to listen to Jane and Greg, and then Tom Hartman, and then Todd Alba from the fair, and Maggie Dawn, because they will all have chances for you to win on Free Ticket Friday. All right, we'll go through this thing about birthright citizenship in a court case, and again ask, like Jane and Greg do, how is this a thing? From the heart of America's Up North, live from Lake Wissota, thanks for making this the place to spend part of your mornings. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Very nice. And you can bring that up earlier underneath,
Okay.
for the bridge too. Oh, okay, there we go.
Labadee, dabadoo, labadum.
Welcome back on this Friday morning. Again, as always, we'd love to have you as a subscriber to our newsletters, including the Sunday morning one that I put together, wrapping up the week's political news. We also have our Monday through Friday newsletter, which today includes some information about the Northern Wisconsin State Fair. Also, a link to an article we did on various informative and fun factory tours in Wisconsin. You can't do that just anywhere. You can't just walk into a place and go, hey, I want to see what you do. I want to see what you make here. Other places are much more welcoming about those kinds of things, and the best ones are outlined in this article, along with a story about a national list of the most scenic destinations in Wisconsin. I'm sorry, it's the most scenic destinations in the U.S., broken down by state. And so our article tells you about the 7 most scenic destinations in Wisconsin. And remember, when we talk about scenic destinations, we're talking about the view. Does not necessarily mean the amenities. I have been to places where the view is spectacular. Good luck finding a bathroom, or a hot dog, or anything of sustenance or substance. But the view is outstanding. So this is just about the scenic destinations. You might have to pack a picnic basket, but you're going to want to see these places across the state. Again, that's in our newsletter. Sign up over at upnorthnewswi.com. Across the Civic Media Radio Network, it's important for you to know that Todd Alba is not only at the Northern Wisconsin State Fair today, he is getting set to go road tripping next week with Jane Matinair. They are hitting the road with stops in Oshkosh and Butternut and Hayward. And so Jane and Greg and Todd are going to be sharing stories about what makes Wisconsin great. So you're going to want to tag along for that. So be listening next week. I was listening to Todd talk over dinner about the planning that's involved in all of this, and it's going to be great. Some wonderful destinations. So check that out all next week. Matinair on Air and the Todd Alba Show. Well, one of the news stories that we're following this week, along with the aftermath of, the state budget bill and the Trump tax spending boondoggle, is the ongoing effort by the Trump administration to pretend the Constitution doesn't exist when it comes to the 14th Amendment and birthright citizenship. And at one point, the U.S. Supreme Court appeared to give Trump a bit of a victory when it came to one particular case, saying that federal district judges, could not put nationwide injunctions on executive orders, that the judge's ruling only applies in that particular federal district, which sounds silly to me because a federal district is not a state. It is part of the federal judiciary. But be that as it may, the conservative justices said, nope, can't have a national injunction unless it's a class action lawsuit. If it's people, not just one person filing this suit, but if it's on behalf of like a national population of people, then that can proceed. So a federal judge in New Hampshire ruled yesterday, blocked the Trump administration from enforcing its executive order ending birthright citizenship by certifying the current lawsuit as a class action, and said that his decision applies nationwide to babies who would have been subject to the executive order, which includes the children of undocumented parents and those born to academics in the United States on student visas. The Trump administration, here's the exact line from the New York Times article. The Trump administration has fought to challenge the long-standing law laid out in the Constitution that people born in the United States are automatically citizens regardless of their parents' immigration status. Let me read that first part again. The Trump administration has fought to challenge the long-standing law laid out in the Constitution, ... How is this still, how can you just say he's fought to challenge the law laid out in the Constitution? You may as well say Trump has filed this lawsuit against the laws of gravity. Would we both sides that thing? Would we say, well, Trump's got some good points to make about gravity. Maybe it's not a real thing. No, it's the law of gravity. It's there for a reason. And the same goes for the Constitution. What's in the Constitution is in the Constitution. And there is no valid legal argument that has been made. And even the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, in kicking this thing back to federal court, did not rule on the merits of birthright citizenship. It was just about the extent of a federal judge's, abilities to impose injunctions on executive orders. Well, now, with it being a class action lawsuit, this is now a national case that will, again, eventually work its way back to the Supreme Court. And that, to me, is truly going to be the test of just how much we have politicians in justices' robes on the U.S. Supreme Court, if they are willing to rule against this thing that's in the Constitution. When those justices threw out Roe v. Wade and the abortion protections inside of it, it was because they said that an earlier Supreme Court looked at the language in the Constitution and said the language that's in there creates a right to privacy, and that includes the privacy of women to make their own healthcare decisions. This Supreme Court said, well, the right to privacy is not explicitly said in the Constitution. They're inferring it, and we reject that. But this is a different case. These are the actual words in the Constitution. And if this U.S. Supreme Court eventually overturns birthright citizenship and turns babies born in America into stateless American children who are American by birth, but not American by citizenship, not officially recognized by the government of the country they were born in, and have no other country that recognizes them, we will have truly sunk into a dark place in this country. And we'll monitor this as we go along. All right, we'll take a break here. We'll talk to Courier Newsroom's Kia Vakil about some of the headlines of the week as well, birthright citizenship and more, live from Lake Wissota after the Midwest Farm Report here on the Civic Media Radio Network. I'm Pat Kreitlow. That was an interesting choice of song there. Were you at Hairball last night?
No, I accidentally found that folder that you shared with me of like 4 songs.
Oh.
And that was in there, I think.
Oh, I had no right to do that.
Well.
Oh, well. All right, so Kia's good to go there, and then hopefully Greg. Yes. All right, good. So I don't think I'm going to need this anymore. I'm not going to need Sunrise Sunset anymore. Okay.
What's that clip?
What? Oh, I was getting Who Is On Jane's show today. That's what it was.
It is Dan Schaefer at 10:06.
Dan Schaefer at 10:06. All right.
That is all.
Okay. Dan Schaefer, 10:06. Okay. Let's see, from the fair. That Todd Alba. I mean, nobody works harder. This guy's just, he's on fire.
I reject your reality and substitute my own. I reject your reality.
Oops. I might clip that because I like that clip.
Okay. Okay. All right. Maggie Dawn. Has Pete been off this week? Are they doing like best ofs? Kind of looks like it because there's nothing listed. On Monday it says best of, and then the rest of them are blank.
Yeah,
So I'm guessing
that could.
Pete's on vacation this week.
Thought I remember Dom saying that he was producing, though.
Okay.
Or maybe that was on Monday. Maybe that was before the fan was hit.
What a wonderfully cryptic way to put that. That was fantastic. That was wonderful. All right, let's see. We got this. All right, we're back on this Friday morning, which means it's time to talk to Courier Newsroom National Political Editor Kia Vakil. Kia, how are you?
I am well, Pat. How about yourself?
Good. Did you have a quiet 4th of July break out there in LA?
I really did. We had a picnic with some friends, and then I watched some soccer and went to another friend's birthday. Studiously avoided fireworks, and otherwise just kind of hung out and tried to rest and recuperate from the past 6 months of chaos.
Oh, yeah, that's putting it mildly. And I already know you don't pay a lot of attention to sports out there in LA, but with the Brewers having just swept 3 from the Dodgers, and not having the Dodgers have not been having a great week. I don't know how much that carries over into LA at large because it's so large, but the Dodger fan base is not tiny.
No, LA is huge, but the Dodgers are, I would say, like the most, they have the most significant fandom, and the most working class, middle class fandom. So yeah, when they're struggling, I think, there's baseball's 162 games. So it's like a 3-game loss, a losing streak is not the end of the world, but yeah, they sell out every game. Their fans care deeply. I'm sure there are a lot of fans who are frustrated.
Oh, with that much payroll overall, and then that much payroll just on the injured list, yeah. I can totally understand that. All right, let's get into some of the stories of the week. One of the more recent ones deals with birthright citizenship. Again, how is this a thing? But it is. And so on Thursday, a U.S. district judge kind of did the only thing you can do after where we are in this process, and that's create a class action status for people that want to challenge the Trump administration's effort to try to say that birthright citizenship, it might be in the Constitution, but they didn't really mean it.
Yeah, I mean, after the Supreme Court ruling that sort of blocked nationwide injunctions, the justices left an opening for, another way to oppose Trump's order, which is to file lawsuits as class actions. That's what happened, and this judge essentially certified that, creating a way to another injunction on Trump's order, essentially. Trump, we know, birthright citizenship is guaranteed in the Constitution. And so we know that on the merits, this is so blatantly unconstitutional that it's shocking that it's even gotten this far. But, we have a judiciary that was large, primarily appointed, or at least plurality, by Donald Trump. And so there's a lot of far-right justices. But, as of now, that order is on hold. I think they left some time for appeals and other filings. But yeah, it's a big deal. It creates a pathway for a way to block it, hopefully permanently. But, that's getting a little ahead of ourselves. There's going to be a dispute. I would not be remotely surprised if this ultimately winds up back before the Supreme Court. They didn't rule on the merits of it. But I think that's probably in our future.
Oh, no doubt there. And now it's interesting that the district judge said his decision applies nationwide to babies who would have been subject to the executive order, in part because, as the ACLU says, under the terms of Trump's order, people born to parents in the country unlawfully risk being rendered effectively stateless, which that's absolutely common sense. If your parents are undocumented here in the United States, but you're born here in the United States and you've never been in the country where your parents came here from, you're not a citizen of that country either. So again, I say, not to you, but how is this a thing? Why are we talking about this? And yet, like you said, it's going to be in courts for a while yet. Yeah.
And I think just the concept of being stateless is something that I think no one probably thinks about in their day-to-day life. If you're, born in the US, you're a citizen of the US. You never we take a lot for granted with that, but let's say you're born in Brazil or Denmark or Mexico or South Africa, any country, you have a state. This would essentially create a stateless, a minority, extreme minority of people who would have nowhere to call home, would have no real rights, would have no citizenship. Where do they go? And if you're saying, I don't care, they just can't be here, that's not an acceptable answer. These are human beings. And, I think the Trump administration's entire immigration agenda is particularly cruel and evil. But this is so beyond the pale because they were born here. They don't have another state to go to. Obviously, I don't think deporting gardeners and landscapers and taqueros and all these folks is particularly, it's not making anyone safer. It's ruining lives. They are from a country they were born in, whether it's Mexico, Colombia, El Salvador, China, somewhere else. They have that citizenship. Stateless people will not have that. Where do they go?
That's the thing. You can't it's like they saw that one movie from 2004, that Tom Hanks movie, The Terminal. And it's all about a man from Eastern Europe. He's stuck in the terminal at JFK in New York, denied entry in the United States, but he can't return to his home country because there was a military coup there. And so he just lives at the airport. I almost feel like they want to round up all these kids and take them to JFK and say, well, you can get a Cinnabon from here and read some magazines, but you can't be in the United States anymore. I know that sounds silly, but so does the whole premise of what they're proposing in court. Does it sound silly? It's worthy of a Hollywood movie that, everybody has long since forgotten.
Yeah. And we're talking about babies. They can't do anything on their own. They can't decide. They have zero control or autonomy. They are babies. They literally cannot function without parents or other guardians or adults taking care of them. So it's a death sentence in a way to babies. Mm-hmm. And I just, this birthright citizenship thing is, we love to hear, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and all these people love to say, oh, if you don't get this under control, you don't have a country anymore. That's BS. But if you're saying people born in the U.S. are not citizens of the U.S., then you don't actually have a country anymore, because you're targeting people born here, guaranteed by the Constitution.
And if we're going to do that, again, it does make me wonder when Melania Trump and when J.D. Vance's wife are going to maybe speak up a little bit more than they have been so far. Let's make the tough transition down to Texas. Courier has a team down there in Texas, thankfully not in harm's way, but having to report on such a difficult story with all of the loss of life from the floods. How is the team doing? How is the story unfolding here?
Yeah, they're hanging in. It's been devastating tragedy there. Our folks, were mostly based in, Austin, Houston, and Dallas. So no one was like directly impacted in that way. But, one of our staffers has gone to like sleepaway summer camps as a child, and it's devastating. It's a lot of little kids who've died, unfortunately. And I think the thing they were most demoralized by was on, frankly, I hate this phrase, but in this case, it applies on both sides. There was a rush to really turn this into a political football and fuel conspiracy theories and point blame while 6 hours into this. And there's a time to cast political blame. Yes, Texas should do more to fight climate change. Yeah, these local counties should probably get more funding from the state to install better alert systems. Yeah, the Trump administration should do X. But when hundreds of kids are still missing within a day, and there's a lot of folks online, just the chattering crowd, being like, "Oh, this is a red state. You deserve this for voting red." People in Texas rightfully get pissed at that. That's not everyone in that state votes red. Even if you vote red, no one deserves this. No one deserves suffering to see their lives destroyed, maybe their kids swept away, their property destroyed. No one. And whether you're in California or Texas or Wisconsin or Arkansas, I don't care what the politics are. Natural disasters happen everywhere. And there shouldn't be a politicization of it. We should give them aid. We should give the wildfire victims in California, who still have gotten no help from the federal government, aid. People deserve help in tragedies and not to be treated like a political football.
And I mean, that is the bottom line, is this. I think a lot of this wouldn't be the case if you didn't start seeing several years back, especially after Hurricane Sandy, people in Congress actually voting no on aid to their fellow American as a result of this. So you're right to be upset about it. But I can see how we got to this point, unfortunately.
Yeah.
A lot of the week's news has dealt with the Trump Republican bill that was passed late last week. And throughout the week, we've been passing along, new things that we're discovering in this, extending, permanently the tax break on corporate jets and those kinds of things. And so many of the courier outlets are talking to people in their states where, again, this has been a week of discovery and disappointment for a lot of Americans.
Yeah, I mean, this bill is massive. I was putting together a list yesterday of just different things it does, and I stopped at 25 because at a certain point, you just don't have time to cover all the bad things. But it's people on Medicaid are going to lose their health care. Nursing homes are going to close. Rural hospitals are going to close. And there are going to be some people who are like, "Oh, reporters, the media is being alarmist. Democrats are being alarmist. This isn't going to happen. It's just typical fear mongering." But it will happen. You have hospitals saying it. You have nursing homes saying it. You have the families of disabled kids on Medicaid saying it. It might not happen for a year or two because a lot of the worst Medicaid cuts don't go into effect until 2027 because they cleverly want to delay them till after the next elections and the midterms. But these things are going to happen. A lot of very smart people have read this bill, have analyzed this bill, work in nursing homes and hospitals. They see the writing on the wall, and it's devastating. Our North Carolina reporter interviewed these two parents of children with disabilities who rely on Medicaid for the very expensive treatments they get to stay alive. And, this bill doesn't explicitly target kids on Medicaid, but there's a lot of indirect cuts that could prove life-threatening for these families. And that's awful. The food cuts into SNAP, that's going to put more strain on food banks, which are already struggling with more demand. There's ways in which this bill, it alters the way you can take out student loans to go to medical school. If you are a lower middle class, working class kid growing up in rural Wisconsin and you want to go to medical school, this caps how much loans you can take out, both per year and for your lifetime. And what that means is essentially only the rich or people who are willing to take out an astonishing amount of private loans, which are usually quite predatory, will go be doctors and lawyers. What does that mean? It means people are not going to get treatment from doctors. There's going to be a doctor shortage. There's going to be potentially a legal shortage. And the people who do go into it are going to be forced to pursue the most highest paying jobs because they're going to have to pay off even more debt in private loans, which have higher interest rates. There are all sorts of impacts from this bill, and we're going to cover them over the next weeks, months, and years. But, it is one of the worst bills I have ever seen.
And despite while we cover it every day, feel like it lasted for a while, it was in the grand scheme of things, rushed. You understood why Donald Trump wanted this rushed by July 4th. He turned it into a symbolic thing, but he knew as more people would find out, they would not like what's in this. And there is so much in it that, yes, it's going to be a months-long project just to convey all this, not just what's in it, but as all of this unfolds and starts to harm real Americans. They'll find out the tax breaks that are permanent, like corporate jets, and then they'll look at that no tax on tips and overtime and realize it's only temporary. It gets you through the end of Trump's term, and then magically it goes away. So a lot to study. Kia Vakil goes through all the stories that our reporters across the country do for Courier Newsroom, and we appreciate him joining us every week to put it all in perspective. Kia, thank you so much. Have a good start to the weekend.
You too, Pat. Thank you.
We'll have today's history lesson right after this. You're up north. And now we await the arrival of Greg Bach.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Or do we?
You may never know.
Well, we'll know as soon as one of us sends him a note.
That's true. I will message him right now.
Yes, I'm holding this up for effect. So, okay. Wait for it. There.
He can't hear us.
No, he can't. He's got no headsets.
Oh, he can. Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's woefully underprepared here as a broadcast professional.
I was going to set up the other room, but I don't have time because I'm working on the other thing. I'm doing like 5 different things right now. So.
Oh, okay. Only 5. Oh. Hi, buddy.
Hi. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Greg Bach. Woohoo!
Wait, hold on. Do that one more time, just for my sake.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Greg Bach. Woohoo!
I just heard an echo.
Oh, come on.
A tiny echo, like in the back. So don't worry.
Oh,
about it.
that's probably just the lack of soundproofing in my room.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
15 seconds.
You lay so easy on my mind.
Oh, we're going back to 1973 for the start of today's history lesson. This is country singer Bobby G. Rice. Happy birthday to the native of Boscobel, born this day in 1944. Between 1970 and 1988, Bobby G. Rice released 9 albums, charted 30 songs on the Billboard Country Singles Chart. His biggest hit was this top 5 hit from 1973, You Lay So Easy on My Mind. Happy birthday of sorts to the United States Marine Corps. It was reestablished this day in 1798, having been disbanded 15 years earlier after the Revolutionary War. And one more historical note, there was a duel this day in 1804 in which the Vice President of the United States, Aaron Burr, mortally wounded former Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton because, as we learned from the musical, everything is legal in New Jersey. Joining us for today's history lesson, as always, on Fridays, the one, the only, Gregorian Ilyanovich Bachtober. You know him as Greg Bach. Mr. Bach, good morning.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, all people.
Tony, right away, jumping right into this. So where's the big old I told you so sign? It's true. If Greg had walked in with a big sign saying I told you so, it would have been the appropriate way to start this off. Look at this energy, Greg. Look at how good I've felt the past couple of days.
Very peppy.
This has been very peppy.
I love 2 things: cheap and peppy. Peppy and cheap. Those are 2 things I love. It's a great movie. Soap dish. Get it in your life. So first of all, I told you, quote unquote, I told you so isn't my style. That's not how I roll in life. That's not how I do things.
Okay.
2, that makes me so happy.
Oh, thank you.
Let me ask you a question. What was it like I'm sorry, you used it the next day? What did you feel like?
For folks just tuning in and think we might be in some weird dark territory, we're talking about a CPAP machine, kids.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But we're going to lift that tape and find other ways to use it. The first morning after the CPAP machine, using it, I thought I'd be struggling. I thought I'd feel claustrophobic. I'd grouchy from not getting enough sleep. I felt like a new person. Like I'd finally gotten, I was able to breathe, and I felt like $1 million, and have felt good the next 2 mornings since then. It's been amazing, and I am deeply grateful that you are my personal trailblazer toward a life of CPAP.
I'm so happy for you. And I'm proud of you too, because a lot of people don't take those steps. They just don't, for various reasons, and they're their reasons. So, I hope people listening who have been thinking about it, who have been having problems sleeping, really, take in the information we've been giving them for the past few months, because it really is life-changing. I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that that's how you're feeling. And it's only going to get better with every time you use it. And I'm not casting a downer at any moment, but like in the time I've been doing it, there have been a couple nights where I have like fallen asleep and just not put it on. You do feel it the next day. There is whatever, but it's just going to get better and better and better and better. And yeah, that energy, that life, maybe one less cup of coffee in the morning because you just don't actually need it. You're not struggling. It's great. And I'm so excited for you.
That's great. Thank you again. And Parker, of course, is over here. He's not even a coffee drinker to begin with, much less having to deal with middle-age problems.
This is the conversation that is aimed to the least of my demographic of all time.
you are not the target demographic. Yes.
No, I mean, honestly, buddy, I'm sorry to tell you this, but that's not true.
There are younger people that get the sleep apnea.
CPAP doesn't know age. It doesn't know height. It doesn't know weight. It affects you because
of
how
your
your body's
the
designed.
shape of your face.
Exactly. So, and that's the thing too. If you're younger and you're listening to this, well, congratulations, listening to radio. But also,
you're up already.
But it might not be like what you think. Go get a test. Go get tested. Find out what's going on, because it's life-saving.
On the text line, Matt in Germantown, CPAPs are great. Used to use one all the time. Then finally was able to lose enough weight, and that solved the problem. Although I would add, one of the things I learned is that's not necessarily true for everybody. But when I needed it, it was amazing. So that's awesome. Yeah. Let's see. I've got another history note from the comment section, but we should keep the music rolling here. So let me tell you another birthday. Jeff Hanna, lead singer of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, is 78 today.
I knew a man, Bojangles, and he danced for you.
There you go. Let's see. From Tony, where is it? Oh, here it is. Of course, it's July 11th. He says, it's National 7-Eleven Day. Everyone got their Slurpees? And yes, 7-Eleven, they have their Slurpee special like they do every year this day for 7-Eleven.
I've never had a Slurpee in my life.
I did a
I'm
long time
This is an
ago.
icy house. This is an icy house.
I had a school bus stop in St. Paul that was on a corner with a 7-Eleven.
Oh.
And yeah, so
Also-
I had a lot of cavities back in the day.
I also feel like if you lived in Wisconsin, 7-Elevens are not, it's not really prevalent at all. But it also, I feel like for a long time, this didn't exist here.
No, they didn't. They're national, but that doesn't mean everywhere. And so, yeah, we had them in that particular place. But now, of course, we're here in the land of Quick Trip, where there are no Slurpees. One more quick birthday here. Suzanne Vega is 66 years old today. There. Now we've got that in the background to tell you that this is also National French Fries Day. It's National Motorcycle Day, and it's National Kebab Day. You may say kebab, but some of us who saw Flight of the Conchords will never forget that song, The Most Beautiful Girl in the World, with the lyrics, I draw you near, let's get out of here, let's get in a cab, I'll buy you a kebab. I can't believe I'm sharing a kebab with the most beautiful girl I have ever seen with a kebab.
Most beautiful woman in the world. Oh, Parker, watch the flight.
Parker, watch Flight of the Conchords. You've
I'll
got to add it to the list. Greg Bach, thanks for checking in. Thanks for the treatment, the encouragement, and we'll catch you on Jane's show. And then on the road next week. Big trip coming up.
That's right. We're going to be all over Wisconsin. We'll talk more about it on the show coming up, but we're going all over the north of Wisconsin with Todd Albaugh.
That's fantastic. So stay tuned for Jane and Greg following this show, and of course more here on our mornings powered by Up North News next on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Was no one I had heard of, and I'm turning to the
There we go. All right, boys and girls. That was fun. Jules and Moseny, that's harsh. Okay.
What?
We don't need that.
What?
Oh, we got
Let me
critical
read it
comments on
before
the
I
text
get
line.
deleted. Oh.
Yeah.
What?
See? Come on, Jules.
Jeez.
Okay,
Do you know how much comedic value I add to this show for the first 40 minutes?
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and...
Jeez.
Good morning, Jules.
All right, we're going to let you be. I'll see you later. Bye.
Oh, bye. Sleep well, friends.
Love you.
How's Mr. Santel this morning?
I am I am doing well. How about you fellows? Everything good?
Yeah, we're all good here.
right.
I just wanted to give you a heads up that as tempting as it is for all of us to dunk on birthright citizenship, I've already done 2 segments on it in the last hour, so I probably won't spend a lot of time on it.
Let's move on to something else.
That's the thing. There's always we will get to it. I just wanted to make sure you knew it was going to be one of several topics today.
Absolutely.
Okay. Sounds good. And then you are guest hosting for Maggie this afternoon, right?
I'm doing the first hour with her. I think she's I hope she's back. I wasn't planning on guest hosting, but I join her from every other Tuesday and Friday for like an hour or so. So I think that it's good. You should note that. I'll have to clarify that so to ensure that there are no surprises upon my arrival at the studio. So
I'm sure it'll be fine. All right. I'll see you in a little while.
Very good. We'll see you in a few minutes. Good.
Okay. Morning. Morning, Mark. How are you?
Hey, doing okay?
Good. All right. Let's see. We got Jim there. We'll get Jennifer in a bit. I've already teased. We'll come out of the gate after a court case or two. That thing on the New York Times still asking question headlines. Did Trump violate the Constitution? The hell.
Which headline is that?
I don't know. Which one did you put up here? Here it is.
Yeah.
Why? Social Security email says policy bill eliminates tax on benefits. Does it?
That's right. Oh, yeah, right. The teaser stuff. Yeah.
Yes, the clickbait crap. So anyway, all right. Sounds good. I'll see you in a little bit.
All right.
Good morning, Brittany.
Good morning.
Oh, it is going good. Thanks. All right, here we go.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media, you're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Wissota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Oh, that's me. It's time to say good morning. It's 7:06. It's a Friday morning, July 11th, 2025. Nice to have you here up north. Parker Olson standing by in Studio A2. Meteorologist Brittany Merlot in just a sec as well with the weekend forecast. Our weekend review panel will be along shortly. Former U.S. Attorney Jim Santel and veteran journalists Mark Jacob and Jennifer Schulze. A lot to cover throughout the course of the next hour. But here's something else that we can cover during the course of this next hour and the one after that. It's Free Ticket Friday. Yes, it's your chance to win a 4-pack of Milwaukee Brewers tickets to a specific game. In this case, use that keyword, send it to us through the Civic Media app. Text us before the end of the show at 9 a.m. You'll be in the running in this statewide contest for 4 tickets to Sunday afternoon's game against the Washington Nationals. So if you can go to a Brewer game Sunday afternoon, this is the contest for you. Our keyword for the show this morning for a 4-pack of Brewers tickets for Sunday's game is ball, B-A-L-L. One winner will get a 4-pack of club-level seats. So get that Civic Media app from your Apple Store, your Google Store, wherever. Find one of the stations on the app and use the text button to send the keyword ball to be entered in. And then listen later in the day to Jane and Greg, Tom Hartman, Todd Alba, and Maggie Dawn for more chances to win on this Free Ticket Friday. Let's see. We've got Brittany here. Yeah, yes, we do. This is from the text line from Jim Brookfield. Always nice to hear Brittany's radio voice providing an accurate statewide forecast. I feel connected to my friends up north. Southeast forecasters usually ignore most of the state and always overemphasize not to change your plans, even when it's pouring. So thank you, Jim, for that. Brittany's going to tell you if it's going to pour, you should change your plans. But that's only if we're going to get that pour. I had the thing last night with Todd Alba where we did the fair, and we're going to do it again today from 2 to 4.
Cool.
And then the original plan was to take Todd out on the lake, get on the pontoon and go. But, there was the chance of scattered showers everywhere. There'd be a cloud over you. 5 miles over this way, you could see a cloud was raining on somebody. 5 miles over there, the sun is shining, And so we decided to go get some dinner instead. We're sitting outside on a deck, and the sun is out, and it's gorgeous. But, you just know that if you try to get on the boat instead,
your
you'd
luck
be the
might
one.
change.
Yeah, you don't know. So it's not that you cancel your plans. You just need alternative plans, varying plans,
backup.
contingencies.
Plan.
Yes. So what kind of plans are we making today and tonight?
All right. So if you're down south, those plans are probably going to be to stay inside. Unfortunately, we've got that front that is stalled over northern Illinois right now. The low pressure, little disturbance is still moving in towards the Rockford area. So as this happens, it's going to start to lift this front north into us. So southern Wisconsin is going to see those showers and storms starting to increase, especially by this afternoon. They kind of fire up around 2 to 3 o'clock or so. Now, this is far, far southwest. And this is going to ride the state line and in towards Janesville, Madison area, Milwaukee, too. Actually, Janesville and Milwaukee, you're in a slight risk for these storms to be severe. And if they are severe, there are chances for a tornado. There were some yesterday down in Illinois with this rotation, and some strong winds are possible, and also hail, too. So that's the risk from Janesville through Milwaukee this afternoon and evening. And also statewide, still heavy, heavy rain. There's a ton of moisture that these storms can tap into. So even as far north as Park Falls or Eau Claire, you could still get under a storm tonight, and it could still dump a quick 1 to 3 inches of rainfall. This is a heavy, heavy rain. Getting it in an hour, an inch and a half in an hour. That's what they saw down in Madison yesterday. Streets were flooded, sewers overflowing, trees were knocked down. There was also a tree I saw on top of a house, and this was by Wanakee. So a lot going on, and even in towards Rockford, they had about 3 inches rapidly, plus more on top of it. There was waist-deep water in Rockford. The city bus was flooded. There's pictures of 2 to 3 feet water down there. So this can happen. This is not far away from the state line. This can happen this afternoon for us. Hopefully it won't, but be prepared. Northland area, still you can get a storm underneath you, but your chances are a little bit less. Those will be much more wide scattered. Now, as we go through tomorrow, we still got a cold front moving through. It doesn't look to do too much now. It just wants to spark a few widely scattered showers and storms. Again, they still could pack a lot of heavy rainfall. This will be tomorrow afternoon. Then the front has cleared us for Sunday and Monday. We'll stay dry, we'll stay sunny. It'll actually be comfortable on Sunday. It starts to get more humid as we go into Monday.
My goodness. So much to track here. But people definitely appreciate it. There's a lot in the mailbag here today for Rob from Tigerton. Good morning from Tigerton. It's sunny and 62, 5/100ths of an inch of rain last night. Yesterday I mowed 4 yards in the Tigerton area. Today I need to get 2 more mowed. Now we've just got a hodgepodge in the mailbag here, going back to last hour. I use a CPAP machine. I have since 2019. I can tell a big difference when I use it compared to falling asleep on my recliner. This is National French Fry Day, so he makes note that he will have French fries with his fish fry tonight. He says the corn is really growing now, so we're going to have some corn sweat with the humid weather. It's been a mad dash for farmers to get the second crop of hay in. I can testify. They got that second crop off in a hurry here earlier this week. But I got to tell you this. The folks all around Courier Newsroom, all around the country, we occasionally get on a video call, a Zoom or whatever you use. And there's people from all over the country. And somebody from Iowa Starting Line mentioned corn sweat. Yep. And the folks from the East and the Southwest thought for sure they were being punked. They're like, what is corn sweat? And as the Midwesterners, explained it, you could tell they were not buying this at first. They were like, this is not a real thing. Yes, corn sweat is a real thing.
Absolutely, it is. It totally is.
It's that much. It gets real humid there. Roger in Stevens Point says heavy rain soaked parts of western Portage County and the Golden Sands area west of Plover and the town of Linwood west of Point last night. Tony goes on to say Brittany gets the Northwoods as the most important weather forecast to give rather than,
Yes.
the southeastern part of the state. Let's see.
Wait a minute.
No, I love all of you. It's just important
That's
in the
right.
woods. You've got a lot of
Yes.
trees to knock down there.
Yeah, exactly. And let's see, one more from Rob. Watch out for flooding. And also, I have scenic roads that were washed out from the culverts getting washed out. Yes, that is also a thing that could happen. And we mentioned that the sun is setting just a little bit earlier now. It's coming up just a little bit later now. And, it'll be fall before you know. Alicia's like, oh, yeah, there's already some people declaring Halloween. The Halloween stores are going to go up. Leave it to Tony to go, yeah, I miss the darkness. Well, Tony lives up near the tundra, so 6 months of, night is more in his wheelhouse than it is to us. So all
It's
kinds
funny
of
that you're
folks.
saying that. I'm wearing an Alaska shirt right now, where
Oh,
they get
that's
the
yes.
total darkness, in winter, but
Or, you don't get to
All
sleep
day
because
light.
the sun is always up.
I was gonna say, you get that far north, it's just always sunny.
Yes.
Yep,
And
yep.
now is Parker, his Mallards game got rained out yesterday. He's got a doubleheader today. Are they going to get the doubleheader in today?
I don't think so.
Oh.
Good luck. I hope
Good.
so. What time is it?
Yeah.
I think we start at 4.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know. Maybe you'll get one in.
You're so like, no shot.
Yeah.
Parker, sorry.
Yeah, there may be
would bet
more
on no.
makeup games to come.
Yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
Brittany, thank you so much. We'll talk to you next hour.
Sounds good.
All right. As always, a reminder, sign up for our newsletter. Head over to upnorthnewswi.com. Sign up for our weekday newsletter. We've got a Sunday morning newsletter as well. Today's newsletter talks about the Northern Wisconsin State Fair, where Todd Alba and I will be today from 2 until 4. Come over and say hi if you're anywhere near Chippewa Falls. And also some stories there about scenic destinations in Wisconsin and public factory tours that are available as well. So much to check out in our newsletter. Again, upnorthnewswi.com. Our Week in Review panel will be coming up next. We've got some court cases to talk about, birthright citizenship, of course, but there's also a new challenge to the congressional maps in Wisconsin. You'll recall it was not long ago at all. Was it last week before, that the state Supreme Court said it was not going to take up original jurisdiction over a challenge to the current congressional district boundaries. But now another lawsuit has been filed, and so we'll ask former U.S. Attorney Jim Santel about the differences between them. We'll have that coming up for you in just a short time. And one other story that caught my eye, and not in a great way. The headline from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, Frank Vaisvelas. Sorry, Frank, if I mispronounced that. Trump dumps a panel targeting offensive names. So Wisconsin's half-breed rapids will likely stay. That is because the Trump administration dismantled a committee tasked with removing racist names from landmarks. It was established by Interior Secretary Deb Haaland in 2021. Haaland was the nation's first Native American person to serve as Interior Secretary. The Trump administration dismantled the committee, in part saying that moves like this to remove racist names are racist themselves, because that's the kind of down is up world that we live in nowadays. So a lot of places have had their names changed. There were 28 different place names that changed in 2022. All had the derogatory name for women as part of their title. A lot of them were, rivers, lakes, creeks throughout the part of the state. But the work hadn't been done yet. And so other racist names like Half-Breed Rapids would have been the next logical step, according to Chris Goodwill, who is Menominee and former tribal liaison for the Wisconsin DNR. But the committee never got the chance before it was dismantled by the current Interior Secretary, Doug Burgum, the former governor of North Dakota, who had been considered a friend by tribal leaders, according to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel article. Now, Half-Breed Rapids is on the Tomahawk River, about 20 miles west of Rhinelander, near the Lac du Flambeau Reservation, and within Ojibwa ceded territory, which is land the U.S. took from the Ojibwa, where tribal members reserve the right to continue fishing and hunting. Now, the reason this really stuck with me is because of a hockey game. You'll recall I was following the Western Michigan hockey team on their way to a national title because my son-in-law works for the team, and that included a game against North Dakota. Now, the University of North Dakota has been the Fighting Hawks for quite a few years now. Prior to that, for several decades, they were the North Dakota Sioux. And there are folks who will tell you, well, that's part of our culture. No, that's just your stubborn pride, unwilling to let go of, names that you've appropriated from elsewhere. It's not like Sioux was North Dakota's original team name. They were the Flickertails originally, named for the ground squirrels around North Dakota. But then they changed to the Sioux because, racism was cool back then. Like cigarette smoking or chasing your secretary around the desk or, redlining the maps so that black families couldn't buy a house. Good times, right? So if you wanted to name your team, for the Red Men or Indian Head or Sioux or whatever, you got to do that for the longest time until finally enough folks said, maybe not a great idea. And the names were starting to get changed back or given something less racist. And then Donald Trump happened. Still a work in progress in this country. Our Week in Review panel is coming up. A local update next for some of you, and we'll continue on these mornings powered by Up North News on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Pat, I am so interested in Native American names in sports. I need to go find that article.
Yeah, hang on, I'll drop it to you here.
Because Whitewater used to have a indigenous logo, so I've written a story about that before.
Okay, there it is. From Matt in Germantown, Sioux means snake in the native language. It was a slur to those tribes given by white people. Ugh. Luann in Wanderoo says, are there any problems? I don't hear anything on the stream.
I messaged her. I don't know what her problem. I don't know where she's listening. I'm trying to figure it out.
Oh yeah, get details and we can pass that on if it is something indeed that we got to get fixed someplace.
I checked on YouTube and I checked on the app, and those are both fine.
Okay, all right. And let's see what else. Dan says he's reporting from Soggy Rock County. Yeah, there's definitely a big old area of rain down there. So, all right. Thanks everybody for the text. Keep the messages coming in, and our panel will be along in just under a minute and a half. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning.
We're going to jump into this
7 seconds.
5 seconds. Here we go. Once again, it is Free Ticket Friday here at Civic Media, so you just text in the keyword before the end of the show today, and we've got a pretty good response here. Now, these are game-specific, so it's 4 tickets, great seats, but they're for Sunday afternoon's game against the Washington Nationals. If you can go to Sunday afternoon's game and want to be in the running in this statewide contest, text the word BALL, B-A-L-L, before 9 o'clock and the end of the show, and you will be in the running for those tickets. Former U.S. Attorney Jim Santel is joining us now, along with journalist Mark Jacob and Jennifer Schulze joining us. Whoops, I got to hit those buttons in the right order here. And joining us from Mark and Jennifer from the Chicago area. Hello, panel. Nice to see you all, as always.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hope everybody had a good 4th. Let's jump right into things here. Jim, we'll start with you because there are some legal cases. We've already talked at length about birthright citizenship. We may get back to that, but I want to ask you first about another legal case, and it is this new challenge to the congressional district maps. And I don't know the difference. The original one said, this is a partisan gerrymander, and the state Supreme Court didn't want to take it up originally. This new one says the congressional maps are an anti-competitive gerrymander, and they're willing to work their way through the court system. But I don't know if there's anything in there that sounds like it's likely to gain any more traction than any other attempt, unfortunately. What do you think?
And traction, Pat, I think is what we focus on. The thing that I think many people find interesting about this is, thank goodness, finally, let's all take a breath and say that our judicial system works when we begin at the trial court level, right? We've forgotten all that. And so these recent cases recently, and then a year or so ago, when the Wisconsin Supreme Court said, no, go away. We're not deciding on the merits of your challenge to congressional line drawing. Go back to the trial court and develop a record on this. This is how our system works. And so there should be some sense of embracing what the Supreme Court did last week, the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and saying, go back to the court and come up as you normally did. Maybe there's a lesson there for our federal Supreme Court also. It's taking all these emergency applications, leapfrogging over same kinds of things at the federal level. That's number one. The second part of this is exactly what you noted, which is this is premised upon sort of a related theory. It's not racial gerrymandering, which plainly is in violation of the Voting Rights Act. And again, it may not be partisan gerrymandering, which the federal courts have said that they will not take attention to. But it does talk about competitive gerrymandering. And so it is a new, not new theory, but a new concept. The notion is that in the candidates for the 8 districts, the maps were enacted, the median margin of victory is close to 30 percentage points. So they're looking overall, Democrats, Republicans alike. That's a significant portion of this. And beyond that, I find it interesting that this is being brought by a bipartisan group of who? Business leaders. And that, too, is interesting because why do we have a court system? And for many, many reasons, to vindicate rights and interests, but also to send to the world the notion you come to Wisconsin and you will get contracts enforced. You can go into litigation and get arrangements for employment situations addressed. It is good for business to have a court system that is rational and normal, including districts for the congressional seats.
Normal is the word that I would seize on, and getting back to norms. And there's a related thing about getting back to norms that I want to bounce off Mark here, and he was the one that raised it from a New York Times headline. And we've seen this all the time, but he specifically picked on this headline. Social Security email says policy bill eliminates tax on benefits. Does it? That was the headline. Does it? Mark says on a social media post, why are New York Times editors asking this question when they know the answer? I don't know, Mark. Do they?
Well, the story did. That's the thing. The stories are so often better than the headlines. The headlines often say less than the story did. And in this case, the Trump regime is sending out a misleading email that's saying that they eliminated Social Security taxes on Social Security, which they didn't. They did some sort of relief for some people, but they definitely did not eliminate taxing of Social Security income. And one thing, Pat, I went back and looked at it, and the New York Times changed that headline. I think maybe it was people other than me saying, "What the heck are you doing? We don't pay these subscription rates so that you can ask us questions. We pay the subscription rates, so their headline later said Social Security sends a misleading email claiming to eliminate taxes, which
See,
is where they should
there.
have been in the first place.
Exactly. Jennifer, this is not an easy thing in newsrooms, the discussion of the tease or the headline of how to make it compelling. You want the people to click on it, you want them to read it, you want them to stick around past the commercial break, but there's that line somewhere where it becomes clickbait, and I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer, but in this case, much like the old Supreme Court justice said, you know it when you see it. It's clickbait.
Well, I come from a good long history of local TV news where writing catchy little teases to get you to stick around through the 2.5-minute commercial break were very important to us. And it has been really disappointing to me to see grand news outlets like the New York Times follow that mistaken thing that we were been doing for years in TV news, and they have a choice, and they're making the choice to ask a question they already know the answer to in hopes that you will click on the story. But as we have talked about 100 times, people typically only look at the headline. Oh, maybe they did it, maybe they didn't. Oh, well, and it's just we don't have time for that in this environment we're living in right now.
No, I mean, look, there's a lot of people that we say don't just get your news from the headlines, but by the same token, the headline should at least contain a kernel of information in there. And again, these are tight ropes we all walk in various professions. In the profession of journalism, it seems fine to ask them, stop asking questions in your headlines. Will we talk about something more after the commercial break? You'll have to tune in after the commercial break to find out. Live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network. I don't know. Maybe we will. Oh boy. All right.
Pat, if you wanted me to add just a little bit of more fuel to the fire from my friends Jennifer and Mark, this latest Supreme Court thing, again, no explanation for it. The headline is from the New York Times: Supreme Court clears way for mass firings at federal agencies. How about simply saying, Supreme Court grants Donald Trump what he wants, which is to get rid of people. That's incendiary, but clears way. It sounds like you're eliminating brush or something in your backyard, right? And now we've got a clearer path toward, again, mass firings. What? And again, maybe the headline should be, once again, Supreme Court doesn't tell us why they're letting him fire hundreds of thousands of people. But I realize that's too incendiary. But just another one that crossed my mind in that connection with misleading headlines that you and Mark and Jennifer are talking about.
All right, sounds good. And then Jennifer, we're going to get to your column about the Texas River deaths. I think I'm going to get there by way of Mark, because Mark will take the bait as easily as I will. If I just say to you, you know what I'm going to say? Chuck Todd. I'm just going to say Chuck Todd.
Oh my God!
What did he do? I didn't even see it.
Please do. Let's go. And
the
then
tragedy in Texas could have been avoided if both sides stopped playing politics and better prepared our communities for extreme weather disasters.
Oh my goodness.
I examine how the political discourse has become a virus, and the responses. Oh my God, the responses on the both sidesism, coming from Chuck Todd, which is, it is the most Chuck Todd headline or post you could want. So
right.
Yeah, we've got that. So we'll come at the Texas River thing in from two angles there as well. So, and then we'll also get to the Jake Tapper newsletter. Which, if you're going to do Chuck Todd, you might as well do Jake Tapper too,
Tapper,
right?
Chuck Todd, there.
Two peas in a pod. So, all right, sounds good. All right, well, we'll be back in 2.5 minutes. See you in a bit. The Milwaukee Brewers were off yesterday. They start a 3-game series at home against the Washington Nationals this evening. Coverage begins at 6:35 on several civic media stations today, tomorrow afternoon, Sunday afternoon, and then it's time for the All-Star break. But before that time, there is this series, and if you would like to win 4 great seats, 4 great tickets to the Sunday afternoon Brewer game against the Washington Nationals, well, then text the keyword BALL, B-A-L-L, using the Civic Media app. You will be in the running for those tickets. There will be a rally at the state capitol today, put on by Wisconsin Early Childhood Action Needed, Wisconsin Public Education Network, Main Street Alliance, and others. Basically all about the state and federal budgets that were passed last week and how both of them continue harm to many Wisconsinites by benefiting the wealthy in the form of tax cuts and not doing nearly enough for things like the childcare crisis and K-12 education. There will be a news conference there at 9:30 with several speakers, including Corrine Hendrickson, who's talked to the show plenty of times on childcare, Secretary of State Sarah Godlewski, and many more. So again, that's at the state capitol over on the State Street steps. And then there will be some letters delivered to elected leaders as well. So we may talk more about the federal budget that was passed and the coverage of it with our panel, Jennifer Schulze, Mark Jacob, and Jim Santel. But I do want to take a moment to talk about coverage of the Texas floods. Jennifer, let's start with you. It's the subject of your latest column in Distinct Chatter that you can get on Substack, and what you had to say about the coverage of the tragedy in Texas so far.
Well, I'm very impressed with the coverage. I think that local Texas media, in particular, TV and print, digital, have all done an excellent job, not just telling the story about the tragedy, and it is a tragedy. I mean, it's just a nightmare. I can't even imagine. But they are also very aggressively holding officials to account. There have been numerous news conferences that have been held on live TV where reporters have really pressed these officials to say, why didn't you do X, Y, and Z? And that's really impressive stuff. And I would like to hope that that influences some of the coverage we see today in Texas when the pool travels with Trump from DC, and then we'll have the opportunity to ask a lot of those questions, because these local TV reporters have really been pushing for answers in a way that we do not see in our national media, frequently the ones covering Trump.
Well, that takes us to the national media, Mark, and Chuck Todd, who is doing Chuck Todd things, who posted and was completely roasted, I would dare say annihilated on social media for this post. The tragedy in Texas could have been avoided if both sides stopped playing politics and better prepared our communities for extreme weather disasters. I examine how the political discourse has become a virus. If we sounded an alarm for both sidesism, we'd go deaf blaring this one, Mark.
Yeah, well, yeah, and when you actually look at the facts, it's these extreme weather disasters, which we're seeing more and more of, are happening because we're not taking climate change seriously. Well, what side is taking climate change seriously and what side is not? I mean, this is not like just partisan bickering. This is one side deciding to eliminate all these programs, for clean energy and double down on fossil fuels because, those are the donors that make money, and the other side trying to actually deal with a climate crisis. But no, it's both sides are doing this and that. Plus also, I mean, it's clear now that local Republican officials, I mean, it's not because they were Republicans, because they're local officials who decided not to spend money on an early warning system because it cost too much. So, that's what they decided. They made a calculated decision. This was not just a matter of, well, we didn't know better. They discussed it. They decided not to spend the money to protect people because it cost too much money. And so, zero in on that. Don't do this kind of vague kind of, partisan bickering, that doesn't get us anywhere. And then it's Chuck Todd acting as if he's above it all instead of actually zeroing in on whose fault it is.
It's marketing. It's his marketing shtick now, is to try to rise above it all. But that means there's times when, again, both sides aren't 50-50. And if you're afraid to call it so, I mean, what good is your marketing position? We have spoken already this morning about birthright citizenship. But Jim, as a former U.S. attorney, I'd like your explanation will probably sound better than mine as far as why the case is now a class action case, because I think to the layperson, they heard that the U.S. Supreme Court made a ruling, and in their mind, especially the way some media, I think, portrayed it, was that President Trump can go ahead and try to ignore the Constitution in terms of birthright citizenship. That's not actually what the Supreme Court said, and a federal district judge this week took it to that next level, making it a class action suit. Why?
I think it's fascinating as a legal matter, fascinating simply as an American news item, too. We recall that when the Supreme Court decided not to decide on birthright citizenship, it is still unresolved, this very clear issue. They said that national injunctions can no longer happen. One judge cannot impose her or his will on the entire nation. Okay, we can argue about that. And there may be times when it's appropriate, maybe times when it's not appropriate. What they did also say, in addition to staying this order until July 27, tick-tock right now here in America, they also said, but you've got other remedies here. You can do class actions, which basically identifying large groups of people who have commonality in their facts, commonality in the law, and bring them together. And by certifying that class, you may be able to do the same thing. Well, within moments of the Supreme Court's issuing that decision, sure enough, class actions get filed, the lawsuits anyway, and this particular judge in New Hampshire says, okay, that's fine, I can do that, and it's arguably brilliant. What he says is, I am now going to certify a class of virtually everybody who was affected by the president's executive order way back on January 20th, and that includes in particular the babies of people, of women and men, obviously born since the time of the executive order. He certifies the class and says, all of you who otherwise would be citizens today, I am certifying your class, and as to that class, I am now imposing a national injunction. And so it is fascinating. The judge says, you told me I can do this. I've done it. I preserved America once again. It's going up to the First Circuit Court of Appeals, may end up before the Supreme Court again. But it just underscores once again, why doesn't the Supreme Court simply say what we all know, which is the 14th Amendment grants you a right for citizenship if you're born here. That's been the law for 100 years. Say that, Chief Justice Roberts, right?
How is this still a thing? Exactly.
Right.
And Jennifer, you just heard the explanation of a former U.S. attorney. And as you know, in this era of sound bites, I mean, it is a serious challenge to reporters, whatever the level of experience, to convey all of these nuances of the legal system. And I'm not saying that you or I have the correct answer to it, but for the love of all things holy, maybe run your copy by somebody with some legal experience before you pop off on this subject.
Oh, Pat, I don't know. I think you might be asking too much there. I do think a lot of these stories are very complicated, but they also can be boiled down very simply. And what somewhere in the press gets stuck somewhere in the middle, right? They try to tell the story without going too far, so they don't offend their corporate owners and get on the wrong side of Trump. But then, so they never land in a place where they just say what actually happened. And I find that particularly frustrating.
Do you use the phrase, maybe you do it a different way, but I've often heard the phrase said to reporters, tell it to your mom. In other words, instead of writing all the legalese and the jargon, if you got on the phone with your mom, what would you say? You wouldn't say, no offense, Jim, you wouldn't say everything that you said for 90 seconds there. You'd say the Supreme Court did this. And it just, I don't know if you have a similar way that you express that to beginning journalists.
I think that is an excellent lesson. And that is, in fact, how people are taught about journalism. Tell me what you're trying to tell me. Tell it to me in one sentence. What is the story here? Get to the nut of the story. Okay, that's where we're going with this story. And in fact, I think we try too hard not to do that because of all these other sensitivities that are now in the atmosphere.
Yeah. And Mark, you were a front page editor for the Chicago Tribune. I mean, you know how you have to work so hard to make it concise, not just the headline, but the lead.
Yeah, well, I feel like a lot of journalists are writing for other journalists, or they're
Yeah.
writing for their sources, and that becomes a real problem. You know, that they're writing defensively, and politicians want them to write defensively. That's why you get so much criticism of the news media by politicians who are being covered. You know, they'll have their press person call after every story and explain to them why it's wrong. You know, there's this pressure campaign, and not just by Republicans. When I was a Metro editor at the Tribune in Chicago, you know, Rahm Emanuel was all over us all the time. You know, and if in effect what he was doing was working the refs, he was trying to get us to, to use and trying to intimidate us so that we would, say other things.
You'd
say
think twice.
Softer things next time. And so, yes, I mean, exactly. Talk to your mom. You're not talking to Rahm Emanuel. You're not talking to some other journalist who's a competitor. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're just trying to tell your mom what happened.
Now, we've mentioned that Jennifer's latest newsletter for Indistinct Chatter is on the Texas floods. Your latest, Stop the Presses. The headline is, Jake Tapper believes in Jake Tapperism, which is probably one of the most honest headlines I've seen in the longest time, of trying to explain the way that he has covered certain things like a dog with a bone that they just will not let go of. And that's as Jake Tapper as it gets.
Well, my contention is that he's really a journalistic windsock. You know, it's not that he's a right winger or a left winger or anything like that. I mean, he was actually quite hard on Trump in the early days, but now that Trump is an established, he's here for the second time as president. I think Tapper's decided to kind of play to that audience, and he's decided idiotically to make a big deal about a former president who's no longer really a factor in American politics, rather than looking at, trying to report on the 5-alarm fire that's happening next door. And I think he's just a careerist. He's just trying to position himself for maximum benefit to Jake Tapper.
Well, the fact that he's got a history that stretches back to, the Monica Lewinsky scandal. I mean, he's got a record. He's got a style, which, again, works in certain circles. But I also feel like somebody like you needs to, point out the way that operates. So that's in Stop the Presses. Get it at stopthepresses.news or couriernewsroom.com. And then last but not least, Jim's got this program on the weekends, Amicus, a law review, Saturday mornings. I'm sure you're going to get into a couple of the cases we've already talked about. Any that we missed that you want to promote quickly for tomorrow's show?
One of the things we're also going to talk about is Pam Bondi. Yes, indeed, she's our Attorney General, saying some very interesting things about how Assistant United States attorneys and department lawyers should act, what the principles, the standards are, changing America by virtue of what you're telling your lawyers' staff to do. We serve, the Department of Justice serves America, does not serve Pam Bondi, does not serve the president. That has changed in the past 5 months. More of that, again, coming up on Saturday.
I can't believe we're not all taking loyalty oaths already. I mean, God knows that's the expectation. A local update is next for some of you. Others will stick around here with the panel. And then in our next hour, we'll talk to Dr. Kristen Lyerly, who's out in Washington, D.C., and we will get sports from Mike Clemens as well. What has happened with the Brewers? Where did this team come from? We're loving this. We'll ask Mike about that next after the 8 o'clock news here on the Civic Media Radio Network. All right, this would be a good time for me to also tell you that there is the Free Ticket Friday contest that's going on still. And so to be a winner of 4 Brewers tickets to Sunday's game against the Washington Nationals, you're going to want to send in the keyword BALL, B-A-L-L. Text that to us. And by the way, you've got till 9 o'clock to do that. Then you'll have to be listening to Jane and Greg, to Tom Hartman, to Todd Alba, to Maggie Dawn, and also hear those keywords for your chance to win Brewers tickets on this free Ticket Friday. And join me and Todd at the Northern Wisconsin State Fair this afternoon from 2 until 4. All right, gang. We are back in 2 minutes from right now. And anybody want to throw anything else out there that we haven't covered yet?
Well, I mean, my pet peeve, and we didn't talk about it last week because we were off, but the that CBS News thing where they
oh yes,
where they that they're, I mean, you are seeing parts of major media just folding to Trump.
Yes.
We could also talk about the Mamdani coverage if you want to.
Yes, I've got that.
Rufo being the inspiration for the New York Times rushing a terrible story into print. Oh my God.
That's a good one.
Yep. Okay. Sounds great. All right. Got that.
In the Pat's, this sounds like more like a frivolous story, but a appeals court has blocked a rule that would have required businesses to make it easy to cancel subscriptions and memberships.
Oh my gosh.
As it is to
terrible.
sign up. And so can't do that according to appeals court. You got to make it cumbersome for people to get rid of their subscriptions. It's a silly little story, but maybe on those kinds of things you add on at some other time. Federal Trade Commission had done this analysis, and appeals court says, nope, we're not going to require that companies put the simple unsubscribe button and make it as easy to get rid of things as it is to sign up. Great. It's a silly little story, I know, but it's the click to cancel rule for what it's worth. There it is.
Sounds good. All right, we'll get going in just about 20 seconds here. One more time for Free Ticket Friday. Ball is our key word, so use the Civic Media app and text BALL, B-A-L-L, and be in the running for 4 tickets to Sunday afternoon's game, Brewers versus the Nationals, a statewide contest coming to you from the Civic Media Radio Network. Former U.S. Attorney Jim Santel is here, along with journalist Mark Jacob and Jennifer Schulze. And let's see, Jim, you will also be the guest co-host, at least in the 4 o'clock hour on the Maggie Dawn Show, coming up a little later. And we've noticed such changes already from the Biden administration. I mean, far too many to spend time with. But one that the Biden administration really had was a focus on consumer rights and consumer protection. And obviously things are a little bit different now, at least according to an appeals court judge in a case that you're tracking, making things just a little bit more complex once again for the consumer.
Right. The Federal Trade Commission had passed a rule that basically said if you're going to subscribe to subscriptions, memberships, those kinds of things, you got to make it just as easy for people to get out from under those. You can't go through 5 or 6 different hoops. And they had proposed that as a consumer friendly. It's a small thing, I suppose, given our other challenges in life these days. But the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals just decided to block what's called the click to cancel rule. Let's not make that easier for consumers to do that. The rule was set to take effect on July 14th, no more. We'll see what happens. It's a small blip, if you will, in an otherwise interesting world. But appeals court saying, nope, you got to keep those difficult mechanisms in place.
Such a different time that we live in now. And Jennifer, I know that you've written about the coverage of Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic nominee for mayor of New York. And the New York Times, again, you know, at a leader in journalism in so many ways, but in so many other ways, such frustration, and that includes their coverage of this mayor's race. What's the latest controversy on that?
Well, it seems to be ongoing, frankly, but the latest is that they rushed a story that seems to have violated even their own policies about sourcing. They used an anonymous source and only shared his screen name, although he was well known, and he's a far right-wing race science supporter. And they ran this story, and the framing of it is just that Mamdani did something wrong, instead of saying He's got a very interesting racial background. You know, he's multi-ethnic and he grew up in Uganda, and there was no place to say all that in a college application, you know, and how many people are like him and have these same challenges. Instead, they did this story like, oh no, he did this terrible thing when he was 19, applying to a school that he did not get into, I want to point out. And then the follow-on explanation for it was, well, Christopher Rufo, the right-wing wingnut, was chasing the same story, so we had to get there first. Just absolutely absurd.
It just, Mark, that's a level of competitive pressure that at a certain level you're above. Obviously, you always want to be first, but not at the expense of your own standards.
No. I mean, I always used to tell people, you know, the number one job is be right. You know, number two is to be first. You know, I mean, and you don't want to be first and wrong or violate your standards. You know, so Mamdani, you know, when he was, you know, applying to college when he was a young man, he checked the boxes for African American and for Asian. Well, his parents are from India, and he was born in Uganda. So it's not, he wasn't lying. He was just trying to deal, as many people do, deal with a system in which, you know, just checking boxes doesn't tell the whole story. But this information wouldn't even be public, except that a right-wing hacker went into the Columbia system and stole the information. And then it gets to the New York Times through that person, and the New York Times, just as Jennifer said, used his screen name, his internet name, rather than his real name, even though they knew it. It was bizarre, Jennifer. I thought that the New York Times said, well, you know, you can, in effect, they were asking the readers to check out the guy and figure out who he was, because for some reason they wouldn't say who he was. It was crazy. It was ridiculous.
It's almost like they made a deal with the guy.
Right.
Like, we're not going to name you, so give us this info. Everything about that story was wrong, and their response to it since then is wrong. There's a quote from someone at the New York Times in a leadership position saying, well, everyone's talking about it, so we must have been right. I'm sorry, but no.
No, that's not how this works. But again, we're getting away from norms. For example, media companies that would back their newsrooms when they haven't done anything wrong. But Mark, CBS is that much closer, or its corporate owners, to making a deal that's going to make Donald Trump look like he was right when he was complaining about CBS News, when he was wrong, but he's still going to win. And it's not because of the newsroom, it's because of the corporation.
No, I mean, these are the cases in which the major media organizations have completely defensible court cases, but they're bending to Trump anyway because he has other things to hold over their head. You know, in the case of CBS, he can scotch the CBS parent company's deal to merge, and you know, he's using his FCC to try to block that. But, you know, so they just, you know, so they're going to write a $16 million check to Trump's library, you know, which can't imagine. It'll be like 10,000 copies of Art of the Deal, I guess. I have no idea what his library would be like. But this is the media bending to the knee, very dangerous. And it just means that there are fewer and fewer credible outlets out there.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And Pat, if I can even add to that, remember the underlying allegation made by our president was that CBS News had plucked and clipped some of the interview sections with former Vice President Kamala Harris, and somehow that is violative of, I don't know what it is, but we do that. You do that all the time in journalism, right?
That's what
there is
journalists
nothing
do.
wrong here. This is not New York Times versus Sullivan matters, where you publish something that's wrong, not even close. So the merits of this were completely absent. Settling this for $16 million, again, as a litigator, I don't do this kind of law, but equally shocked.
Jim Santel, Mark Jacob, Jennifer Schulze, thank you as always. Have a great weekend. All right. Coming up next after the news, Kristen Lyerly and Mike Clemens, all next here on the Civic Media Radio Network. There we go. Thank you, James, as always.
Always a pleasure. Good. We'll talk soon. Take care. Have a good weekend.
Yep. See you later. All right. Now, I should get some stuff just in case Kristen gets busy and can't join us out in D.C.
I suppose she's probably a little busy today.
He's a little bit in demand, Oh, let's see. Rotunda. Okay. Okay, good. Update on the Capitol rally.
Can this camera pretend to be okay?
I don't think it works that way.
Good God.
across Wisconsin on Civic Media. You're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Minnesota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Hey, good morning. It's Friday. You can tell because he's got the Roy Kent mug, as always, on Fridays for the coffee. 8:06. Nice to have you here up north on this Friday. It is July 11th. We're hoping to hear from Dr. Kristen Lyerly, who's out in Washington, D.C., for a meeting of a national group out there. We'll hear what they're saying about the state of health care in America, especially after the passage of Trump's big bloated boondoggle of a budget bill. Official name. It's trademarked. You can't copy it. And then in our 8:30 half hour, we'll talk to Mike Clemens about the Brewers and just the amazing climb that they've made from, earlier in the season when it looked like they were going to be struggling with injuries throughout the course of the year. The bats were not scoring runners in scoring position. And now things are coming together very nicely. No guarantees, but why is that so? We'll talk to Mike Clemens about that coming up. I also mentioned earlier that there was going to be a rally at the Capitol today with folks upset about the state budget and the lack of support for childcare, for K-12 education, and more. I mentioned that it would be at the State Street entrance to the Capitol. But the weather could also be inclement, and we just received an update that says if it is raining too hard, they will start in the rotunda of the state capitol. And also they have a meeting room reserved as well, if need be. So even if the weather isn't great, there's still a chance for people who want to come and express their displeasure and want the legislature to do more. I mean, now that the state budget is done, it's not like they don't have to do any more work. They still get a paycheck. There's still expectations of them. They can still pass other bills that can help fund things, but there has to be the will to do it. Some of them are demanding a special session of the legislature to work on things like child care and increasing general school aids. And those and other topics will be discussed this morning, along with how else to keep these topics in the forefront of public discussion and not simply accept what they believe are crumbs and walk away. For them, there's more work to do, and that work is going to be done today at the state capitol, rain or shine. And it's the rain or shine part that brings in meteorologist Brittany Merlot to get us started on a weekend where you need to be aware of the rain part of it. We'll hope for the shine, but
the shine will be here on Sunday and Monday. Before that, yeah.
Okay, good. Because right now, I mean, how real is the threat of getting soaked in Madison this morning, for example?
Yeah, so this morning we've got a little bit of light rain trying to move its way into far southwest portions, but it's very light. They are light sprinkles and nothing really too crazy with those at the moment. What we're looking at is that front, though, that is sitting in northern Illinois that downpoured on them last night. Obviously us too, but not nearly as bad. That thing is going to start to lift north, unfortunately. So as it does so, and as the heat and the peak of the day go on, we're going to start to see these storms firing up along that front. So it's going to go from Iowa, stretching all the way up towards Green Bay. I mean, we're going to still see a cold front behind that and instability sparking storms as far north as Superior, Wisconsin. So we're all in a risk today. The biggest risk for strong to severe storms that are going to pack maybe a tornado in rotation, maybe some large hail or gusty winds that could knock down trees. The Storm Prediction Center has a slight risk pretty much from, I would say, Richland Center area through just south of Madison and in towards Milwaukee. So those places along the state line, very far south, need to stay very weather savvy, especially by 4 o'clock. I think that's when those are going to start to push in towards us. 6 o'clock, it kind of looks like it's towards Madison and shortly after into Milwaukee. And those continue through the evening, unfortunately. And like Pat had said, very heavy rainfall is possible. I'd say expect at least a half an inch, but obviously up to 3 inches could fall. It's going to be packing a punch. Flash flooding is a big concern, especially on city streets. Rivers could be rising. If you're in a floodplain, just take the precautions you can now. This is a very slow-moving front, and it's going to have a big punch with it. So there's a lot of instability and moisture that it can work with, and why that's such a risk and so much rain is falling with these. And it's not just south. I want to make that very clear. Up north, even central Wisconsin, Green Bay, for instance, you could still get a storm that could dump 1 to 3 inches on you. That can create flooding very fast. So stay weather savvy, make sure you have a plan. Don't drive through flooded roads. Don't do it. It tends to wash out a lot of roads when this happens, and you don't know if the road's underneath you. So play it safe today. We do have chances for showers and storms sparking up again tomorrow afternoon too, but most of the day actually looks mainly dry. So those are just the pesky, evening summer storms as that cold front moves through. It shouldn't be too bad, hopefully. But then afterwards, as we go into Sunday, things calm down. The sun will be out. Temperatures actually comfortable in the low 80s with no humidity. Nice relaxing day to end the weekend before the heat cranks back up and the storms start to move back in early next week.
Yep, more heat on the way. Robin Tigerton says, when Brittany says weather savvy, it means the weather is very serious with heavy rains. We've got a decoder ring for Brittany Merlot now.
I love that.
And
Yes.
Rob asks, will I get my 2 mowing jobs in the Tigerton area today after the grass dries? And he's asking that on behalf of everybody with a lawnmower, because there's that window, the grass isn't dry yet. Okay, the grass is dry enough, but oh no, here comes the rain. And that might be a narrow to non-existent window in some places.
It's pretty narrow. Further north you are, you've got a little bit more time. And the latest model data is pushing this a little bit back. Just an hour ago, I was saying this is all going to start at 3. Now I'm saying 4. So there is a chance that you can squeeze this in. And of course, up north, widely scattered storms. So better chance for you.
Well, you know what? If you can't get the mowing in today, may I suggest making a lasagna? Tony asks us on YouTube, are you aware of lasagna? Well, yes, we are, Tony, because this is July, and July is Lasagna Awareness Month.
Yes, it's back.
Where?
So be aware that if you can't mow your lawn, if it's a little wet out there, it might be lasagna making weather as part of Lasagna Awareness Month.
This is great.
I never dreamed I would turn this into a bit, but it's...
I can't believe we've kept it up this long.
It's just so stupid, and it deserves to be elevated to the level of mockery, and we're there for that. Especially since it keeps reminding me I really ought to make a lasagna one of these times. It's pretty good, Good stuff. Good.
Perfect
It's a good day
for
for cooking indoors if you can't get out there. Brittany, thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too.
All right. Time to give away some Brewers tickets, or at least we hope to give them away to you, but it's going to start with you texting us a keyword as part of our free ticket Friday. The keyword today is ball, B-A-L-L. You have to text that word in before 9 a.m. on the Civic Media app, and you'll be in the running in a statewide contest for 4 great tickets to Sunday afternoon's game against the Washington Nationals. If you don't have the Civic Media app, come on, get over to the Apple Store, Google Store, and then get that app downloaded. Find your station, use the text button to text ball to be entered into this contest, and then there will be other chances to win throughout the day. Jane and Greg, Tom Hartman, Todd Alba, Maggie Dawn, all part of Free Ticket Friday. And for Todd Alba, he'll be doing that from the Northern Wisconsin State Fair, where he and I broadcast yesterday afternoon, and we'll do so again today from 2 to 4 during his show. And then we had a really nice time over at one of the beer gardens for a bit. Again, there was a little bit of rain, so you got this big old pavilion that you can sit underneath and have some conversations. No lasagna there at the fair, as far as I can tell, although Rob chimes in now that he bought his lasagna at Charlie's Country Market in Shawano on Wednesday. Parker, we're making a difference. People are buying lasagnas in July.
It's moments like this that really make me think, wow, maybe what I am is really adding value to the world. When people buy lasagna.
I believe that you do add value, Parker.
I meant like the show, Pat, as a whole.
Okay. Okay. All right. We're again dealing with naughty people in the sandbox of comment sections today, and we just we have a little fun with them. So I mentioned that Todd will be at the fair today, so be sure you check that out. I'm sure you heard me a few minutes ago mention that Jim Santel will be a guest co-host for the Maggie Dawn Show, starting at 4 o'clock. Later on Maggie's show, right around 5:50 or so, will be Terry Barr with What's Good, Local, and Overlooked. Terry has news of some libraries being built despite budget cuts, and also where you can see the only circus bell wagon in the world in Wisconsin in the summertime. So that's part of the Maggie Dawn Show. And of course, following this program is the one, the only Matt and Air on Air with the one, the only Greg Bach and Jane Matt and Air. Greg was on earlier. We were talking about CPAP machines and anybody who listens regularly knows that Greg started therapy on a CPAP machine a couple of months back and was not going to let me, skate through all of this without having my own sleep apnea addressed. And so that started this week. So Greg was in earlier today to take a victory lap on that. And you can hear more from Greg and Jane. Following this program from 9 to 11, Dan Schaefer from the recombobulation area will be joining Jane and Greg this morning just after the 10 o'clock news. And then Jane and Todd are hitting the road together next week. You've got Todd up here in Chippewa Falls right now, but Todd and Jane and Greg will be on the road next week with stops that include Oshkosh, Butternut, and Hayward for some big events that are going on around the state. And they're going to go over and take a look at them and talk to people who might be attending some of these events. And so you'll want to tune in to both Matt and Air on Air and the Todd Alba Show next week with all kinds of, I'm sure, stories of travel that they're going to want to share, the logistics of planning the lugging of equipment and bodies to get to all of these places. Also from Civic Media, the Wisconsin Forward podcast with Matt Rothschild. It is a weekly dive into a topic surrounding a current political problem in our state, some background on how we got where we are today, what some folks are working on now, and possible ways forward. In one recent episode, for example, there was Bridging the Urban-Rural Divide, where Matt talked to Professor Kathy Kramer, author of the Wisconsin classic, The Politics of Resentment. In another episode, Matt gave a history of conservation in Wisconsin, what was once universally a bipartisan value. And he interviewed Tia Nelson, daughter of the late Senator and Earth Day founder Gaylord Nelson. So you can get a uniquely Wisconsin take on the big issues that are preventing progress and the people with the ideas to move us forward. So you can subscribe and download to Wisconsin Forward on Spotify, on Apple, and on the Civic Media website, which leads me into this shameless plug. You can podcast this show as well on Spotify or Apple or through the Civic Media website, where we are all the time having back episodes. If you missed a guest, if you missed a topic, if you go back long enough to figure out how the heck did they start with this Lasagna Awareness Month thing and why, well, you can go back and listen to those back episodes and find out a bit more. Again, subscribe on Spotify, Apple, or at the Civic Media website. And one more note, of course, is our Sunday morning politics newsletter that I'll be writing up starting today for Sunday morning to keep people updated on what all happened this week. One of the big stories, of course, has been the reaction to the state budget that passed last week, as well as the Trump big bloated boondoggle, as more people are learning just what's in that turkey that passed in Washington, D.C., what's in the bill that passed in Madison, and what's missing from the bill. So I'll be writing some of that up, and you can become a subscriber to Sunday Mornings with Pat Kreitlow by heading over to upnorthnewswi.com. We will continue with Mornings with Pat Kreitlow with a local update for some of you, and then in our 8:30 half hour, we will talk to Mike Clemens, and we will talk Brewers and more sports. That's all ahead here on the Civic Media Radio Network. Welcome back. It is a Friday morning, July 11th. Nice to have you along here live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network. We have talked a lot about instances where usually it's the Trump administration, sometimes Republicans in Congress, doing things that you feel need to be called out. And I know I hear people, out there saying, well, what about Democrats when they do this? Well, look, we've talked about the instances of Democratic gerrymandering. And it's just not a case of two wrongs make a right. You need to call those things out, and you try to have a reform agenda that moves away from those kinds of things. Similarly, there was an instance in Madison that needs to be talked about so that it does not impact elections elsewhere in the future. A top elections official in Madison, according to the Wisconsin Elections Commission, acted unlawfully when she failed to ensure that nearly 200 absentee ballots were counted in the last presidential election. This from a story by Molly Beck and Hope Carnop of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, noting how now former Madison clerk Mary Beth Witzel-Bell refused to acknowledge significant errors in how the absentee ballots were handled, and then did not take any action after learning that 193 ballots went uncounted, and instead she went on vacation. A letter from the members of the Wisconsin Elections Commission says, quote, "This profound failure undermines public confidence in elections. It is essential that every voter knows that their properly cast ballot will be counted. It was the job of the city clerk to immediately take action once notified about the found ballots, and she did nothing. It was the responsibility of the deputy clerk to take action in her absence, and he did nothing. These ballots were treated as unimportant and a reconciliation nuisance rather than as the essential part of our democracy that they represent." This was the first time, as the article notes, that the Elections Commission has used its investigative authority. Ann Jacobs is the Democratic chair of the commission. Don Mills is the Republican-appointed commissioner, and both are attorneys and conducted the depositions in this case. And folks like to note that because this happened in the city of Madison, these 198 ballots that went uncounted, they were lost and then found, did not have any noticeable impact on the election results. That doesn't matter. These were 193 people still whose votes did not count. These are 193 ballots, the oversight of which damaged the integrity of elections in Wisconsin. And so it does not matter if it's in a deep blue city or a deep red county or anything like that. This kind of investigation shows the Wisconsin Elections Commission and its team at its best. And it is a commission that has its share of partisan squabbles, to be sure, and disagreements on how things should be run. But here's what you didn't see or hear as part of this. At no point did you have Democrats on the commission or Democrats writ large saying, this is a wild goose chase. This is a witch hunt. This is all politically motivated. This is partisan. As we often hear with another group of people who, when they are caught with their hand in the cookie jar, like to lash out instead at whoever it was that caught them. The same can be said about the birthright citizenship case that we talked about earlier in the day. Again, there's no legal grounds on which to base any claim that birthright citizenship is not a valid part of the Constitution. And instead, what the Trump administration has done is attack the federal judge who this week turned that lawsuit into a class action matter. And again, couldn't talk about the merits of the case. In the case of these ballots in Madison, there was no circling of the wagons by Democrats or others in the city of Madison. This was so clearly wrong. And in this case, nobody tried to make it a case of partisanship. Said, let's do the investigation, let's do the depositions, and then let's put out the results. And let's put out the results so that, again, nobody thinks that they can get away with this in the future. This is why I'm still very upset at what's happening in Wausau, or rather, what's not happening in Wausau, where unless I have missed something, there have still been no consequences for a mayor who just up on his own removed an absentee ballot drop box. Now, one that wasn't being used yet, one that wasn't even finished being set up yet, but because he didn't like the idea of the absentee ballot box being there, he just up and took it back to his office. And near as I can tell, they're still squabbling in the city of Wausau about whether there will be an elections board examination of this. I still haven't heard boo on whether any charges will ever be brought at a county or a state level. And again, I don't care if it's a $5 fine. I really don't. I do care if it's $0. I care if there's no record, because otherwise there will again be somebody that will take it upon themselves to either act outside the law or, in the case of the Madison city clerk, to neglect the law and say, well, that's no big deal. Consequences doesn't have to mean the electric chair, okay? Consequences just sometimes has to mean making it clear that you got caught, this is wrong, and let everybody know that something like this should not be happening again. That's what the Wisconsin Elections Commission did in this case, in a bipartisan manner, in a place where ballots didn't get counted and it didn't have an impact on the results here. But you really want to protect the integrity of making sure every ballot is counted in the future, because somewhere else, in so many close elections around this state, it can make a world of difference. So I really want to applaud the Elections Commission for going forward on this one and making the record clear. We are going to be talking about sports with Mike Clemens coming up in just a bit, and wrapping up our discussions here live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network for this Friday morning, July 11th. Back in a bit.
I cannot time out the end of these for some reason. That's like 3 today.
Yep, didn't get any note from Kristen, so definitely tied up in meetings or something. My luck, I'll get a text back and it'll be a photo of like, her in the White House or something. Yeah. Get a little sidetracked here. Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to have a quick conversation with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got Dom.
Good morning, Dom. Good morning. Good morning, Mike, if you're there.
Hello.
Hey,
Hello.
there you are. How you doing?
Good. I got 2 audio cuts today.
Yep, we are good and ready for that, aren't you, Parker?
Yep, we got him.
Okay.
Stand by.
Yep, we are all good. Great. We'll see you in 3 minutes.
All right.
All right, so I've got him in the waiting room here.
Sounds good.
Why, yes, it is Free Ticket Friday. Why do you ask? It's July 11th. It's a Friday, Free Ticket Friday, which means that if you are able to go to Sunday afternoon's game, Brewers against the Washington Nationals at American Family Field, and you want to be in the running for 4 great club-level seats to see the game on Sunday, well, we've got the thing for you, a statewide contest, Free Ticket Friday, where you use that Civic Media app, call up one of the stations, use the text button for that station, and text the keyword for our show this morning, which is ball, B-A-L-L. You got to text it before 9 o'clock, before the end of the show, and you are in the running then for those tickets for Sunday afternoon's game, and there will be more chances to win throughout the course of the day here on the Civic Media Radio Network. So be listening in for those Brewers who are, red hot is a cliche. Getting out the brooms for a sweep, that's a cliche. But you know what? They apply because of what the Brewers did to the LA Dodgers. So let's bring in Mike Clemens with more about that. Mike, what could there be a more pleasant surprise this week than what we saw from the Brewers?
No, a tremendous growth period, teaching moments for the young Brewers team. And by the way, you win those tickets, you get to see Freddie Peralta start on Sunday for the Brewers. No, it starts with things like this. It starts with this Pat Murphy as a manager, as a guy who's pushing all the buttons of the people in there. Reese Hoskins jacks up his right hand. His left hand now is in a big black, one of those elastic casts because of a sprained thumb, and he'll be out now till like August. So do I put in Jake Bauer, or we got that Andrew Vaughn guy that we picked up from the White Sox who kind of went into a slump, and we got him in the trade for Aaron Savale. The guy didn't want to go to the bullpen, and so let's bring him in from Nashville. And then Pat decides, you know what, even though he got in here on the plane from Nashville like at 12:30 last night, he probably is not even really thinking about the Dodgers. Let's just put him in the game. And he ends up hitting a 3-run homer to get things started.
It was electric.
Against the Dodgers. Yeah, and Yamamoto, has to exit after 2 outs, one of their top pitchers. And then the big billing on TBS, on network TV, Jacob Mizorowski, the Miz, the 23-year-old against the veteran Clayton Kershaw. And after he gives up that opening home run to Shohei Ohtani, the $700 million player, who, by the way, that's a big dude. He's like 6'4", 210. He looks like an NFL quarterback. After that, the kid settles down and strikes out 12 Dodgers. And you starting to see him fist pump after each inning, until he gets to the 6th inning. Just incredible momentum. And then the veteran Quintana goes in there and locates that ball, gets through 6 innings, and the Brewer bats come in. So the one thing, Pat, that's still great for me in covering baseball is the access. You walk into that Dodgers clubhouse, and that's more like walking into the Packers locker room. These are some big dudes, and a lot of them in their 30s or so. Like the Tyler Glasnow, who started for them, was a Wednesday. He's just coming back from a shoulder injury, and the Dodgers bullpen has been messed up. They've had a lot of injuries, so that's one thing that's hurting them in this slump. But then you can go right into the manager's office, and so we're sitting down there with Dave Roberts, who, by the way, who said, I'm not going back with the team. I'm going to stay here in Wisconsin. I've got an invite to go golfing tomorrow. So he went golfing and then took a private flight to San Francisco last night, where they're going to open against the Giants. And I asked him, after getting just swept by the Brewers on Wednesday, what he thought about the Brewers club.
Dave, was Milwaukee one of the more aggressive teams you faced this year on the base paths?
They are. It's a team that prevents runs really well. They play defense really well, and offensively, they just create havoc. They steal, they bunt, they hit and run. They don't strike out much. There's going to be balls in play. Pat does a good job with the roster as far as trying to maximize and create offense, with that ball club.
I like that, and I like that he decided to stick around and play a little golf in Wisconsin. That was a nice commercial, not just for the Brewers that he just did, but for spending your off days here instead of jumping right back into the pressure cooker in San Francisco.
Yeah, and you get these honest moments too, where he's like, "Hang on a second," before those guys come in. He just takes the cap off and he's kind of massaging his scalp, like, now I get swept at home by the Astros, and now this, and I need a break here. And here's another thing. I mean, Pat Murphy went into this week like, you know what? Extra drills this week. Like, how come? Because you know something? I've been doing this long enough, and it's like these guys, they already start planning their vacations for the All-Star break. What are we doing? Their focus goes elsewhere. So he made them take extra, drills in the field before those first 2 or 3 games in Milwaukee this week, because he's such, this guy is so good at pushing the buttons, Pat Murphy, and there's no question about it, Pat. When you go through that press box, when you go through that Brewer clubhouse before a game, the void left by Bob Uecker, who was going around, all that experience, kind of the grandfather role, making guys laugh and joke and all that. And there's a void there. And just by being himself, Murph has filled that. I mean, he's the boss now. Don't screw up, Joey Ortiz, and make bad decisions, or you'll get benched for 2 days. And then he'll tell the press, yeah, he PO'd the manager.
Yeah, I mean, and he was not afraid to say that. And you really have to appreciate somebody of that caliber in any kind of a workplace. When I started in a newsroom at Channel 13 in Eau Claire, all the reporters are fresh out of school. They're all 20-something, but there was always that one guy. And for us, it was Dave Carlson, the outdoors reporter. So this old crusty guy, and he didn't say much. And that was okay. You knew that he didn't look at you as a young screw-up if he paid you a compliment. And you wanted to earn that compliment, and I am positive that's how a lot of the Brewers players feel about Murph.
Right, and they look at a guy like, I want a lifetime in baseball too, and this is a guy who's done it all, who's seen it all, and also has got a pretty good sense of humor, but he keeps it honest too. And I just found that, and I said, you know what, that void is being filled just naturally. It's not like Murph changed. It's just he's kind of stepped into that role. Because like you ask him about Trevor McGill, who's now going to get to go to the All-Star game since they're going to run Peralta on Sunday. And here's McGill. I mean, a kid who had to leave high school early, finished at a charter school, had Tommy John surgery as a kid, into college, got drafted, bounced around the league. And the Brewers give him a second chance after his time with the Cubs. At 30 years old, Devin Williams has that injury. He gets a chance to be a closer, and now he's going to the All-Star game, which he is so excited about. He said, that was my personal goal this year at 31 years old. And then you ask Murphy, McGill's kind of a, tough guy, straightforward kind of a jock, competitor. But, what's McGill like around the clubhouse, Murph?
You know what? He's given to the team. He's if you don't know him, he's a tremendous giver. You know what I mean? He gives a lot of himself. And he's got his ways about him, and it takes a while to get to know him. He's been through a lot in life. He's way more mature than you give a normal kid his age credit. And he really just loves being part of something and being an important piece of something. And now that he's found this home, last year he was a big part of it, but this year a lot. And he's given that responsibility. He loves it. So he's very, very grateful, very, very thankful. Yeah, I'm pumped for him. Really pumped for him. There's a lot of deserving guys, on our team, in my opinion. But I don't put the chess pieces together on who fits and who doesn't and who was voted. I don't even know how it works. I don't want to know. You know what I mean? It's like it's a great honor, but it doesn't define you in any way.
I like that. I don't want to know. Just know that it's there. And Trevor McGill now becomes part of essentially now a lineage of Brewers relievers who have made it to the All-Star game. I mean, the team is just well known for that, and we get to see him again now, hopefully playing in the All-Star game coming up next week.
Yeah, I know, like 5 or 6 in a row that the closers from Milwaukee that have gone to the Midsummer Classic. So there was a lot to learn this week. There was to compare the Dodgers' performance at catcher, like Will Smith and the other guy, and like that one mistake where he tried to throw out a guy at third, overthrew the third baseman, and Frelick scores. Whereas Contreras, just with a gun, So at the end of the day, this young Brewers club, and we've been seeing this for 20 years. The Brewers can get hot. They have these streaks in the spring. Then the All-Star break happens. And then a veteran team like the Dodgers, they put their head down and they just start mowing people over in August and September, and they go. So that could happen. That could probably happen again. But it's just between Pat Murphy getting everything he can out of this young ball club, and Matt Arnold, where does that GM keep on getting these guys from?
Yeah.
You know, it's just suddenly, they're backed up at pitcher. It's just amazing that these guys that they pick up, or a pickup like Andrew Vaughn.
Well,
Get rid of a
that's
head
what I
case.
wanted to ask you about is here's Savali, who's like, well, I don't want to go to the bullpen, so trade me. And in what other world would a team call up the White Sox and say, here, we're going to ship this malcontent to the White Sox. Who you got for us? And who they send us is ready from his first plate appearance.
Yeah, and last night the White Sox, like a 2-hour delay, then they call it because of the rain delay. They're the crummy last place team, and that's where Savali's sitting right now. Hope you're enjoying your starting rotation job. You could be up here, being a part of the team that just beat the Dodgers. And Shohei Ohtani, who's big dude, man. He looks like a NFL quarterback, 6'4", 209, $700 million. But the Brewers, they've got close to 200 people in their organization. They spend all their money on scouts to get these young players, as opposed to paying one guy $700 million. That's part of the reason that you keep on seeing these hot young 25-year-olds at the plate.
Yeah. I do have to kind of tweak Craig Counsell a bit, though, and maybe he would have said it differently, but when he was asked about his team, the Cubs, having the third best ERA, his quote was, I don't know that I've ever been able to manage a bullpen like this. And I love that people kind of jumped on it. It's like, hello, Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, Josh Hader, Devin Williams. You kind of had a little amnesia there, forgetting what it is that he left here in Milwaukee.
That's true. That would be true.
That's all right. Now, it's not the only thing that's happening here. Now, we're not going to get into football training camp yet. Don't get me wrong, but we are going to talk a little NBA here because there is a summer league, and of course, all the off-season chatter that comes along with it. What's happening with the Bucks?
Well, we've been waiting all week to talk to John Horst. Remember, I was kind of complaining about the press conference during the draft gets canceled last minute. And the Bucks last night, they won a game over the Nuggets with a buzzer beater, 90-89, with the young players out there. But about 7 o'clock last night, we get a press release. Hey, we're going to introduce Miles Turner, that guy we picked up from the Pacers in free agency that we surprised everybody about. And you'll get a chance to talk to John Hurst and Doc Rivers here in Las Vegas. So we get the notice at 7 o'clock last night. I got Brewers to cover this weekend, and you had to RSVP by 10 o'clock this morning. So I haven't called Civic Media to see if we've got our company Learjet all fired up for me to run out there.
I believe Mathers is using it, but we can maybe you can tag along on something like that. Well, that's a little mysterious, but
so there might be two guys out there from the papers or the wires that can ask the questions, but we'll be listening back here at home on the network as we get ready for baseball. But they are going to introduce Miles Turner. And then obviously somebody out there from ESPN Water is going to say, and what does Giannis feel about all your moves?
Of course. We've got to keep, grist for the mill. Got to keep that going as well. So I think we'll have stuff to talk about next Friday as well. Mike Clemens, thank you so much. As always, have a great weekend.
Thanks, Pat.
All right. Good to talk to you, man. We're going to have a local break for some of you here. Others are going to come on back here for some final news and notes from Lake Wissota. And one more reminder for Free Ticket Friday. The keyword to text us is BALL, B-A-L-L. Be in the running for 4 tickets for the Brewers game on Sunday afternoon. Back in a bit on the Civic Media Radio Network. All right, there we go. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Dom.
No problem.
See you.
Thank you, Dom.
Here it is, last call for Free Ticket Friday. This hour's keyword is ball, B-A-L-L. You got yourself about 6 minutes to text that to us through the Civic Media app. Be in the running in this statewide contest for 4 great tickets to Sunday afternoon's game, Brewers against the Washington Nationals. That series begins this evening, and you can catch it on several Civic Media radio stations. Pre-game coverage begins at 6:35 this evening. Got a text from Dr. Kristen Lyerly apologizing for not being able to break out of meetings in Washington, D.C. There's never an apology needed for that. I love the fact that she's out there. She's only trying to save women's health, trying to save rural health care, and I'm like, no, come do our little radio show.
I think she might have something better to do.
I wouldn't say better to do. Yes, I would. I would say it was better to do. But hopefully we'll talk to her on Monday at 6:30. This from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel in the meantime. This Oconomowoc school was converted into 55 apartment units with historic preservation. Parker, I don't know if you've seen apartments like this, but I remember seeing some in Madison as well, where they take an old school, they convert it into apartment buildings, complete with, the hallway still has the lockers going down the hallway.
Not really.
Oh yeah. In one of the units, 2 of the units, I think, they took a gym and they basically divided it, and each half had a loft, but then down below your living room floor was the gym floor, and the basketball hoop is still up there. It's so funny.
I think my aunt lived in a school at one point that got converted into apartments.
There's blackboards in some of them still.
I didn't think it'd be that lazy. I thought they'd kind of strip it all, and it was just the building.
Don't get me wrong. The apartments are nice, with all the new appliances, and they do put in cabinetry and countertops and everything. And so, I mean, it's new apartments, but with parts of the old school building that are still there.
That's hilarious. I would love to get into one of those. That sounds actually really cool.
It was weird to tour it and go, okay, this is interesting, but would I want to live here? And it's one thing if somebody invited you to their place and they had a party there.
That sounds like one of those hotels that you do for the weekend, and just go, this has got some novelty. Sure.
Yes. But this would be your house all the time, your place to live. But anyway, in the Journal-Sentinel, you can check that out, and maybe let us know if you have something similar to that in your community as well. As I was talking to Todd Alba yesterday over dinner, it reminded me of a story as we got talking about media and politics and, how we all ended up in the places where we are now. And I was in journalism for the longest time, political journalism, before making the decision to run for office. And this was back in 2005, 2006. And I came back to a conversation from the fall of 1982, my freshman year in college at UW-Eau Claire, that helped, as Brittany Merlo likes to say, helped spark this decision. And it was meeting with an advisor. I was undeclared because I could not decide between political science or journalism. Which one did I want to pursue? Which one did I want to major in? And of course, they assign you an advisor. Well, my faculty advisor was a political science instructor, professor. I think he later went on to become chair of the political science department. But at the time, I was taking a political science course with him. I'm sure it was Poli-Sci 101. And he did a great job of setting me down and saying, well, tell me about yourself. Tell me what you want to do. Tell me how you approach things and everything. And he listened to me. And at the end, I thought he would say, well, okay, good luck with your decision. And instead he says, you need to go into journalism, not politics. He said, the reason why is it's very clear from listening to you, you want to see both sides or all sides of every story. And that's what journalism is asking questions and figuring out the whole well-roundedness of any given story. Whereas in politics, you got to pick a path and you stick with that path and it's all or nothing. And you got to, dedicate yourself to that. And I thought, okay, that makes sense. And I pursued it. And thanks to great instructors like Henry Lippold and others, I went on to have a nice little career in radio and then TV. But at some point, as I was watching the political scene, I got to thinking about what he said about, being single-minded versus seeing all sides. And I thought, well, what the heck is wrong with that in politics? Why wouldn't you want somebody who wants to look at all sides and then try to find the best path forward? And I had no idea if somebody who'd only worked in a newsroom could go into electoral politics. I mean, others have, don't get me wrong, but I didn't know if it was going to work for me. Well, it did. It led to a state Senate campaign and winning that race narrowly, and being a state senator for 4 years. And it was, 4 of the greatest years, most professional enjoyment that I got. And in large part, it was because you can still have your principles. You can still have your values, which in my case are left of center, but you can talk to people who are right of center, and you can find that common ground where, well, we're not going to agree on this, but if we both agree to go down this path, we can maybe make things a little bit better. We can create some jobs, or we can provide some tax relief, or whatever the case may be. The biggest one for the session, my first session there, was the smoking ban debate and whether to have a smoking ban or not. And again, it was a matter of, that was not a Democratic or a Republican issue. It was hearing all sides, from small business, from health advocates, and finding the right path forward. Some people wanted to do it in like 4 weeks. We ended up doing it like an 18-month phase in or something like that, so that it was fair to the small businesses that wanted to make adjustments. I think we need more of that. We need more of these well-rounded conversations. And so I'm glad I made the jump from journalism into politics and now back to political journalism. And I hope other people thinking about 2026 will consider that as well, as they look for maybe giving us the next generation of leaders here in Wisconsin. My thanks to all of today's guests, of course, and to Parker Olson and Brittany Merlot and you for being here today. I'm Pat Kreitlow, founding editor of Up North News, part of Courier Newsroom, a pro-democracy news network. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here Monday morning, 6 a.m. here up north. And that